Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Lawrence City Council meeting. Today is Tuesday, March 6, 2018. Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Council Reyes. Council Levy.
Present.
Council LaPlante.
Present.
Council Abdu.
Present.
Council Payano.
Present.
Council Dela Cruz.
Present.
Council DePena.
Present.
Council Vice President Rodriguez. Present. And Council President Vasquez.
Present. I would like to apologize for the late start of the meeting. I was stuck in detours due to a big fire that is going on right now behind Market Basket. And now I'm going to ask you to join me in a moment of silence, and please consider and having your thoughts and prayers all of our first responder and any possible victims of this fire. So thank you. Thank you. Now please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. And to the republic
Which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Councilors, can I please get a motion to approve the minutes from February 20th, 2018?
Second.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion has been made and properly second. All those in favor, any discussion? Seeing there's none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Council Reyes noted. Council Levy.
Yes.
Council LaPlante.
Present.
Council Abdu. Noted. Council Payano.
Present.
Council Dela Cruz.
Present. Yes. Yes.
It's the minutes.
Council DePena.
Yes.
Council Vice President Rodriguez. And Council President Vasquez.
Yes. The
Motion fails.
is there a motion to reconsider?
Make a motion to reconsider. Can I do that?
Were you in the prevailing
I
side?
think, he was just for the president, I guess he's not on the prevailing side.
Okay, so there's a motion to reconsider. Is there a second? Second. Motion has been made and properly second. Any discussion?
I have
There's
a question
none.
about it.
Councilor De La Cruz?
Yes. I have a question on 7518, or should we discuss it later?
No, this is the time now, specifically in regards to the minutes.
Okay, my question is, I understand we're going to buy the lot that is on 55 Lowe Street, but I have a little concern about getting that property for the police department. I would like to know if they have been asking to the business next door to offer the lot at the same time, because I think the police department needs a bigger place.
Is there a discrepancy with the minutes as they're written?
It says that the lot is going to be by that amount of money, 675,000. But my concern,
Councilor, which page are you referring to?
I'm on page 58 of the minutes.
So we have document 7518. I will read it for the record as written in our minutes as presented by the city clerk. Appropriation transfer from free cash to fund acquisition of 55 Lowell Street on the amount of $675,000 placed on the agenda by Mayor Dan Rivera. It was referred to the Budget and Finance Committee. Council President Vasquez called the above item to the attention of the city council members as appearing on the agenda, which was then referred to the Budget and Finance Subcommittee of the Lawrence City Council for further proceeding. Councilor De La Cruz, do you have any?
There is my question. I think that we need also to buy the lot next door too, because I don't think that location is big enough for the police department to have the three the police academy, the police station, and it's three different things that they wanted to build at that same building.
Definitely. Is there any discrepancy in the way that the minutes are written?
En los minutos, si hay un error.
Do you have a motion to amend the minutes?
Yeah, it's not an error, it's just a suggestion that I have, a question. I need to know if that or the,
This item, based on the minutes as written, the item has been referred to the Budget and Finance Subcommittee of the Lawrence City Council for further proceeding, which means that we will have the opportunity, or we have had the opportunity to review it at the Budget and Finance Committee level to address this item. I understand the concern brought up to you, but what this is saying, this portion here, is what we did, and that's what we did at that time. Councilor Payano.
Thank you, Mr. President. So the questions that our counselor has, there's a motion here, 7518, later on the appropriation sides on the agenda, so the questions can be answered then.
yes.
Okay, so so this document has been referred back to the City Council by the Budget and Finance Committee, and the question presented by Councilor De La Cruz is a concern about the minutes. So I am asking if there is a discrepancy in the minutes as written.
It is not.
It's not,
Any
okay.
discrepancy
So
on
there's
the
no-
minutes.
any further discussion?
No.
No, thank you. Councilors, any further discussion on the minutes portion of the agenda? Seeing there's none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Council Vice President Rodriguez. Present. Noted. Council DePena.
Yes.
Council Dela Cruz.
Yes.
Council Payano.
Yes.
Council Abdu.
Yes.
Council LaPlante.
Present.
Noted. Council Levy.
Yes.
Council Reyes. Absent. Council President Vasquez.
Yes,
Pass.
motion carries. Councilors, moving on, we have public participation. To everyone who will be speaking tonight, please note that you will have 2.5 minutes. When you hear the first bell, that means that you've spoken for 2 minutes. When you hear the second bell, that means that your time is up. Please identify yourself with your name and address for the record. Please address the City Council as a whole and not any individual councilors. First person is Michelle Paletta.
I'm Michelle Pauletta, 198 Essex Street in the city of Lawrence. You probably know me all very well by now, and I usually come back with the same thing. The new one that I know is coming up on the agenda is the speeding. On Essex Street, I think it's 25, but they do at least 40. I've already been hit on Essex Street in the crosswalk. Almost got hit one other time by a woman that was on a cell phone, and she said, "Move, I gotta go." And I said, "Lady, you're not moving until all the traffic behind you has moved," and it was 4 o'clock traffic. You know, I didn't know what else to do, but I figured, you know, if I was pissed off, she had to be more so. It's ridiculous. You can't walk across that street safely. I don't care if you're in the crosswalk or not. They moved the crosswalk things so that there's no thing that says that, you know, this is a crosswalk. They don't care. If there's a double lane in the crosswalk, the first person will stop, the second one doesn't, and if you're not looking, you're gonna get nailed by the second one. We've had a person in our residence got hit by a car, went over the hood of the car. The next day, he walked by, got hit again. The guy ran over him, and he's now deceased. That's what it's like on Essex, from Union Street down to Market Basket. It is not safe. The other thing I've had, I don't know how many times they have tabled my petition to have one extra handicap parking on Essex Street. We have one there, the car in front of it, there's no handicap there, so they park right there. We have residents that are picked up for groceries, taken to doctor's appointments, whatever, and there's no place for them to park. Housing parks on our side of Jackson Street. They've been told about it. I've gone to housing. I've gone to housing court 3 times, and they're non-compliant. They still park there. If a van comes in, there's hardly any space for them to park unless we get lucky. And most of the time, I've been in the crosswalk or in the street because housing will not move their vehicles. We have a huge parking lot out back, but they don't want to park out there because it's too far to walk. I would love to have too far to walk so I could walk. I don't know what else to do to bring it to the council. I'm getting nowhere with city council, and, you know, the residents in my building are elderly and disabled,
Thank you, Ms. Paletta.
so, you know, it's up to you guys to do something, unless you can give me some
Thank you
other
very much, Ms.
direction,
Paletta.
I will go in it.
Thank you. Next person is Mr. H. Malley.
Humayun Mali, 53 Chester Street. Good evening, honorable members. We, the citizen, demand of you and Mayor Rivera support our police department and their senior officers union. Our police department, under impeccable leadership of Honorable Chief Roy Vass, has done an excellent job to provide safety for our citizens. We are united in one voice. Ask Mayor Rivera sign our police officers' contract. Lawrence is a better city because of the great work by DPW workers. We need support our DPW workers and their union. Honorable Commissioner Raleigh saved our public school. Now, upon his departure, Lawrence Public School has more graduate students, more level 1 schools, and more parent involvement. Forever, we are grateful for such a great leader. Lawrence Teachers Union must have contract. Now we demand of Mayor Rivera work with Frank McLaughlin of Lawrence Teachers Union to provide contract for our teachers. As you see in the news in West Virginia, the whole teachers of the whole state, they were on a strike for better pay, and governor taking advantage. We need to learn from that lesson and provide a better contract for our teachers. Remember your campaign promise, save Lawrence, prosper Lawrence, only possible that you support our senior officers and the union, and Mayor Rivera must sign our police officers' contract. We need to support our brave firefighters union. Remember our wonderful teachers union. A city is a better city when the unions are supported. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malley. Next person is Dick Russell.
Good evening, councilors. My name is Dick Russell. I reside 34 Cross Street, Lawrence. It has often been said imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. With that being said, I will say that it's a shame that the voters didn't listen to what my campaign platform contained. However, it's good to see that some listen. I see several issues on tonight's agenda that I championed. I guess it really doesn't matter who won as long as the city benefits. I have to comment on agenda item 718 during public participation, as there's no provisions on the agenda for a public hearing. Here's a quote from a portion of the 13th Amendment. Involuntary servitude, except as punishment for whereof the party shall have been duly convicted. Does the fact that I am a homeowner and taxpayer equate to a conviction to force me to clean my sidewalk? I have no issue clearing my sidewalk voluntarily, but the force to do so simply grates against my American heritage. Another question for you to consider as you attempt to revise Section 1204-040. Does this make all property owners unpaid workers for the city? If so, and an individual falls and injures themselves cleaning the city's sidewalk, will the city pick up medical expenses? There are other issues on the agenda that I will be looking into in the near future, among them the asinine winter parking regulations and the adjustments of various fees charged by the city. In closing, I'm not overjoyed with the aspects of two appraisals on the lot at 55 Lowell Street. A total of 11 lots were appraised. Only one lot was remotely close in size. However, that lot has a thriving business on it. I don't see how factoring in property values from Dracut, Lowell, Methuen, and North Reading can reflect upon property values in Lawrence. I realize the city has a desire to keep the police station in that area, but in my humble opinion, the city blew it when they didn't get the old Registry of Deeds building on Common Street years ago. The line from folk singer Joni Mitchell's 1970s song, Big Yellow Taxi, They paved paradise to put up a parking lot regarding the old Registry of Deeds site. Seems to sum up the entire fiasco about the new, soon-to-be, sometime in the future, maybe, hopefully, police station. As always, I thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. Next person is John Chelsea. I hope I pronounced it properly.
Shelsey.
Chelsea.
I'm John Shelsey. I live at 6 Orchard Street in Lawrence, and a few of the things I wanted to come here to speak about are I've spoken to our city councilor, Estela Reyes, who's not here tonight, about putting up resident parking only signs on the side of our street, or on our street. And there is two old ones that are no longer legible because they're so old. And she's agreed that she would have the DPW put up 3, one at either end and one in the middle, which hasn't happened, and that was in January. And so I'd like to do something about that if possible. Another thing that I want to talk about is the parking ban. We have a limited number of spaces on Orchard Street and a lot of cars. And it doesn't really work to have an odd even parking situation all the time in the winter. Now, I understand if it's a declared snow emergency to be able to allow for the plows and have cars park alternately during the emergency. But then when it's over, we should be able to park where we need to, because like I said, there's limited parking. And the last thing is the speed limit issue. I think it's appropriate to regulate specific streets at a lower than 30-mile-per-hour speed, like this woman was just saying about Essex Street. And there are some other streets that are densely populated with businesses and people and houses that it's appropriate to lower the speed limit. I'm not in favor of lowering the citywide speed limit to 30, though. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next person is Rosa Jimenez.
Good night. He got to help me a little because really my English not too good.
Not a problem.
Yeah.
I'm just going to serve as a translator.
Okay. Yo quiero venir a hablar de alternative parking in winter. Sorry.
Ms. Jimenez, can you please identify yourself before you start speaking?
My name is Rosa Jimenez.
And your
I live in
address?
32 Old Cherry Street in Lawrence, Massachusetts for 16 years.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yo quiero hablar del problema de... Ay, no, que es ok, tú me vas a ayudar. Del problema de los parques cuando viene la nieve, a ver si hay posibilidad de que por lo menos haga alternativos de parking.
So she actually is trying to address the motion that Councilor Payano is putting on the new business today, 7718.
Yeah.
And she's going to talk about her experience in winter parking.
Sí, yo tengo muchos problemas por muchos años, es lo mismo. En la Orchard, como en la Garden, los vecinos tienen mucho estrago con los parking, más cuando hay nieve no tenemos dónde poner los carros.
As a resident of Orchard Street and even the neighbors on Garden Street, we struggle a lot in the winter, during the winter months, looking for parking.
Sí, entonces muchas veces cuando uno trata de buscar alternativas parking, como pagarlo, tampoco hay espacio porque muchas veces están full y hemos tenido esos problemas y no han llevado los carros constantemente a los vecinos alrededor.
Even when we are trying to look for alternative parking, like parking in a garage, there is limited amount of space that we can go and park to pay. And we have been ticketed and towed.
Sí, yes.
A lot.
A lot. Otro problema es que yo entiendo que cuando nieva de emergencia uno debe de ayudar para poder la limpieza, pero muchas veces no nieva y como quiera vienen a darnos los tickets.
That I understand that when there's snow, we all have to collaborate and help out so they can clean our street, but the winter parking ban affects us even when there's no snow on the ground.
Y en realidad somos una población pobre para pagar tickets por pagarlo y no tenemos dónde montar los carros. Muchas casas de ahí no tienen parking, son casas sin parking, o sea que no tenemos opción que dejarlo en la calle. a merced de que no peguen ticket.
On Orchard Street, almost all the residency on that street do not have off-street parking. So this is a hardship when you're looking for parking in the winter, especially when there's no snow and there's no unnecessary need to move your car.
Yo quiero que tome en cuenta eso, que en realidad estamos pasando muchos problemas. A veces me quedo a trabajar y me quedo a dormir en mi trabajo porque no tengo dónde dejar mi carro.
I hope to take this into consideration when talking about this motion.
Thank you. Next person is Councilor Mark LaPlante.
I'll skip it for the, thank you.
Next person, Luz Santana. Okay. I am now submitting these names to the record. Thank you, Mr. Clerk.
Council
Councilor
President, I'd like to take document number 13314 off the table of matters.
Motion has been made and properly second. Any discussion? Seeing there's none. Councilor
I'm sorry.
Payano?
Take, which one again, 133?
13314.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Seeing there's none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Document 13314 is military veteran recognition. Councilor LaPlante.
Thank you very much, Council President, members of the City Council. What I would like to do at this point is to invite Ray Bayu, who's the commander of DAV Chapter 2, and Ray DiFiore, who's a senior official of the St. Alfio Society, forward, please. And William Collins as well. City Councilors, as you know, I recently returned from Italy, where one of the great privileges that I had was to go and to place a City of Lawrence flag at each of the grave sites of our boys who were buried at the Sicily Rome American Cemetery, which is in Anzio. With the help of our friends at the St. Alfio Society, they purchased the flags. In addition to placing their graves, I was able to place a wreath, a beautiful wreath, at the tablets of the missing for the 5 Lawrence residents who bodies were never recovered. And after a solemn ceremony, we were able to recognize and remember them, and that wreath was donated by the Disabled Americans, a group here in Lawrence, Chapter 2, the Queen City chapter. So what I would like to do now, in great appreciation for what they provided to us, really, it's not just me, it's all of us, that I was able to be an instrument of that, trying to remember those boys from our city. And let me just say this, it was touching and it was moving in so many different ways, to be there on the invasion beaches itself, to walk where they walked, to be in that area, to see the fighting down at Monte Cassino, and in that area, and seeing those grave sites, and seeing that back in 1943, that these fights took place in 44, and it was very, very touching. One of the things I was able to do when I was there, I asked the cemetery director if I could take 2 flags out from 2 various gravestones. I took one out from Private Paul Bongiorno, who you may recall, we as a city council, back in the early 1950s, voted to make a corner at the end of this section right here on Common and Jackson Street to his memory. And what I would like to do is, because the St. Alfio Society is so instrumental in the restoring and remembering the Italian heritage and culture in the city, it is most fitting that I take the flag that we placed at the gravesite of Private Paul Bongiorno and give that to Ray DiFiore, who's representing the St. Alfio Society this evening. So here is the Italian flag, Ray, the Italian flag that was placed there. And of course, the American flag that was placed there. This was not placed at there, but I took this flag with us to Italy. So that Lawrence flag is still flying there on the gravesite. So I want to hand that to you, and thank you so much, Ray, for your organization's support. Thank you.
I would just like to thank Councilor LaPlante for remembering those who were unable to return to our city back in the Battle of Casino. So thank you very much for your efforts.
And Ray and Bill, if Bill, you stand over here. So I realize you guys were good enough to provide the flowers, but it's also important that in the wreath, we also placed a Lawrence flag, but I also wanted you to also have a flag that was also there. Private Edward Maurice was the last gravesite that we pay honor to at that location. And so thank you so much for your support and contributions. Let me just add one more thing. I don't want to belabor this. Both of these organizations are real pillars in our city. Both what the work that the DAV is doing behind the scenes to help our veterans. We don't know all the work they're doing. They do a tremendous amount of work. The work that Ray and his organization does, and a lot of civic activities. Of course, everybody knows the Labor Day feast, of course, the Feast of the Three Saints, but they do much more than that. So I want to recognize them for all their good work. So Ray, I want to present to you the American flag that was there, that was on the ground, the Italian flag that was on the ground, and of course, as I mentioned to Ray, Di Fiore, this is the flag that was brought with us, and of course, that flag that was actually on the ground is still laying there today. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
We have to remember that our veterans all gave some, and some gave all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Councilor LaPlante.
Thank you.
Moving on. Councilors, is there a motion to table document 13314? Motion has been made and properly second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Document 12517, establishing maximum motor vehicle speed citywide to 25 miles per hour. Request to amend Chapter 10.26. Placed on the agenda by myself and Councilor Rodriguez. Mr. Clerk, please read the notice.
Document 125, 2017, notice is hereby given the City Council will hold a public hearing Tuesday, March 6th, 2018, in Council Chambers, 200 Common Street at 7 p.m. The purpose of said hearing is to gather testimony, information, and public input concerning proposed amendment to the revised ordinances for the City of Lawrence to be amended by deleting the former section, or the current section rather, of 10.26010 of the Municipal Code to establish motor vehicle speeds in certain zones, and inserting in its place the following new section, 10.26.010, establishing maximum motor vehicle speed in the City of Lawrence in accordance with the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 90, Section 18. The following speed regulation is hereby adopted. If approved, the specified speed limit established by this section shall be the maximum lawful speed limit at which motor vehicles may be operated in areas described, citing all public ways within the City of Lawrence 25 miles per hour. To the extent there exist any ordinances to the contrary, they are hereby repealed in that respect only. Persons wishing to be heard shall be afforded the opportunity as published on Tuesday, February 27th.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Public hearing is now open. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to be heard? Name and address for the record, please.
Name's Dick Russell, 34 Cross Street, Lawrence. While the aim of this change in the ordinance is admirable, you people, and I don't mean this as any disrespect to the police department, I know what their priorities are. The police delegate responsibility as a hospital triage unit. What is most important, that's what gets taken care of. Like I said, with no disrespect to the police department, they can't control speed at all anyways. Most of you know where I live on Cross Street. Directly across the street from me, there is an old sign from when the General Donovan School was in existence. That sign says 20 miles an hour. Am I checking through the city ordinances? I have never seen that section of Cross Street has been removed from the city ordinances being a school district. I have asked on several occasions, 4 or 5 years in the past, for the police department to put a radar unit up the top of the hill at Cedar Street. You could balance your budget just on the taxi cabs at speed, okay? I don't even want to think about the rocket bikes that go up in the summertime. I'm just waiting for that ultimate cataclysmic big bang. Somebody's going to get killed up there. But it's well-intentioned, but is it enforceable? You got to remember what the priorities of the police department are right now. You got people running around with guns, shooting people. You got people dealing drugs. Where in the great scheme of thing is the police checking on speeders? Where does that fall? With that, I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. Is there anyone else that wishes to be heard? Name and address for the record, please.
Kathy Runge, 32 Dracut Street. If we have a problem with people speeding, ticket the speeders now. You know, you have to stop the people that are speeding currently. Lowering the speed limit isn't going to stop them. You know, I mean, if you have a problem with speeders under the current law, the solution isn't to make the laws more stringent. The solution is to somehow enforce the current laws. And one of my big concerns with this, with a lot of things, is when you do this, just like with the parking ban, it ends up being used for profiling. Somebody doesn't like somebody, be it a police officer, be it the politician, the mayor doesn't like somebody, they're going to say, oh, you give that guy a ticket, he's going 30 miles an hour. You know, it's going to be used for profiling, pure and simple.
Thank you. Next person.
Donald Frazier, Salem, New Hampshire. Good evening, councilors. Again, I come before you guys with the utmost respect and just ask you to think. What good is an ordinance, or what good is a speed limit drop going to do to law-abiding citizens? Are we here because we're discussing law-abiding citizens, or are we here because we're talking about people who disobey our speeding laws in the city? So, with that being said, probably dropping it's not the solution. The solution, I have to echo the rest of the people in the room, is enforcement. We already know our police department is facing a record number of service calls, so that's where you guys come in, try to find something alternative as a way of enforcement, be it speed cameras, speed boxes, something that is both attainable and achievable. But we can't just place this whole problem on the police department either. This is going to take the city as a whole to come together and really put our heads together and come up with a solution. Have a great night, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? Seeing there's no one else, public hearing is now closed. Councilors, what's your motion? Is there a motion on the floor?
Second. Want it to be second?
No, motion to table has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next document, document 35217, handicap parking, 88 Ames Street. Fernando L. Alvarez. Mr. Clerk, please read the notice.
Document 352, 2017, notice is hereby given, the City Council will hold a public hearing Tuesday, March 6th, in Council Chambers at 7 p.m. The purpose of said hearing is to gather testimony, information, and public input concerning a proposed amendment to the revised ordinances for the City of Lawrence by adding the following new paragraph to Section 10-36340, handicap parking, to be inserted in proper order. Ames Street, west side from the point 210 feet southerly of the intersection of Pearl Street to a point 230 feet southerly of the intersection of Pearl Street. To the extent there exist ordinances to the contrary, they are hereby repealed in that respect only. Persons wishing to be heard shall be afforded the opportunity as published February 27th.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Public hearing is now open. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to be heard? Seeing there's none, public hearing is now closed. Councilors, what's your motion?
Motion to approve from word 30 days. Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Any discussion? Seeing there's none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, councilors. Communications from the mayor, city officials, and the city attorney, there's none. Appropriations, orders, and resolutions. Document 9318 is a proclamation to the Lawrence High School basketball. Raymond Nunez is going to the Ordinance Committee. Document 7518, appropriation transfer from free cash to fund acquisition of 55 Lowell Street on the amount of $675,000. Came from the Budget and Finance Committee. Mr. Chair from the Budget and Finance.
Thank you very much, Council President. So the Budget and Finance Committee voted unanimously to send this docket up with a favorable recommendation pending the following information. We need a report of the Ethics Commission's / City Attorney's letter, number 1, an explanation about eminent domain, number 3, and also making sure that it went before their City Assessor's Office for their review and any comments on that, and then make that in the form of a motion.
A motion has been made and properly second. Discussion, Council Vice President.
So, through you, Council President, is this appropriate to be sent to the Housing Committee because of the fact that we are going to acquire a property?
At this point, what we are doing is not actually acquiring the property, but rather appropriating the funds. Yeah. Once the funds, if I'm not going to use the word once, if the council wishes to move forward and approve the appropriation transfer, the mayor's office will then have to come back to the full council, to the city council, to request the acquisition of the property itself. So at that point, we will then refer it to the Budget and Finance Committee, to the Housing Committee. If I'm
Council President, if you wouldn't mind, since we had some documents that we were looking to receive, I'm going to ask the administration if they have those documents, and if they do, if they could share those with us.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening, Abel Vargas, 6th and Haver Street. Chief of Staff Brunel is passing out the documents that were requested. But I first want to answer Councilor Rodriguez's request to go before Housing. We should have a conversation with our purchasing agent based on information that she has provided us. The purchase of real estate does not have to go before, does not have to get approval for the purchase. What we need to get approval for is for the appropriations of the funds to purchase the property. But we could confirm with our purchasing agent. I could get that information for you if you'd like. So based on the prior conversation or the prior meeting that we had before the Budget and Finance Committee, again, it was sent up to this body with a favorable recommendation. The 3 items that we recall were highlighted were, 1, whether or not eminent domain was an option for us in terms of pursuing the acquisition of this property. The second was to confirm not necessarily legality, but to make sure that we were complying with any issues, making sure that it was being done appropriately. And then the last item was specific to the differences between the appraised value of a property and the assessed value of a property. So there's 3 documents before you. I don't know if you have questions specific to any of those, but I'd be more than happy to respond to any questions you may have in relation to them.
Councilor Rodriguez.
So if we're just talking about the appropriation of the funds, one of the documents for
Councilor Rodriguez.
We are, through you, Council President, if we are just talking about the acquisition of if we're talking about the funds, we shouldn't be talking about the acquisition of the property first, right? And then that's going to be happening eventually.
So let me just clarify something.
One of the information that we have in front of us, which is the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 79, doesn't necessarily going to be part of the conversation tonight.
It is important to note that, yes, you are correct. Tonight we are discussing only an appropriation transfer on the amount of $675,000 for the purposes of acquiring that location. Our vote, if we were to vote positively, does not mean that we have purchased the property. We're only putting the money aside.
Just wanted to clarify that because
That
I mean,
is
that should be very clear.
That is correct. So we're putting the money aside for the possibility of purchasing the property, which will likely, if we approve this, I am sure, I'm almost certain that the administration will move forward with the purchase of it. But that does not guarantee that it will be purchased. They could change their mind tomorrow night, but we are giving them the opportunity to say move ahead with it.
Is that means that we're gonna, the city council gonna have to approve that purchase?
I am not certain if we will have to approve the purchase of the property.
So essentially, if we approve the $675 tonight, $75,000 tonight, it is a possibility that the city council doesn't have a second bite of the apple. Correct?
I am not certain. I do not have an answer. Yeah.
Can we clarify that somehow?
Do you want to send correspondence to the purchasing agent for the city of Florence?
Mr. President, Mr. Rhinello is here as well, that he might be able to provide some insight on.
Councilor LaPlante, are you able to provide, Councilor?
Mr.
Okay,
Rhinello?
Mr. Arnello?
You know, the order before us tonight is just the appropriation transfer. I'm not sure what the, I just stepped out for a moment, I'm not sure what the question on the desk is.
The question on the floor at this point is if the city council will have an opportunity to provide input or even discuss the purchase itself. So let's assume that the appropriation transfer were to occur tonight, that the city council voted in support of it. Once it's time to move forward with the purchase, will the city council have an opportunity to speak about it at this level and make a decision on whether or not the purchase occurs?
Yeah, it's my understanding there would be an appropriation transfer. I would defer to the city attorney about some question, another question, but my understanding is we just needed the appropriation transfer to purchase the property. I think that's under the mayor's purview.
We have Councilor Payano, Councilor De La Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a few questions. You know, at our last meeting, we gave it a favorable recommendation, and one of the things that we asked for was sort of there were questions around the ethics of this, because Dr. Gorn is a city employee, and I think, you know, it's great that they have given us this memorandum today that basically says that Dr. Gorn just needs to makes a disclosure of it and file it with the city clerk, and then it would be okay. But then one of the other things we were asking about was sort of the difference between the assessed value and the appraised value. I was hoping to see Mr. Vega here today to sort of better explain that. But I think one of the concerns that was talked about is the fact that the assessed value is at $134,000, and I still don't quite understand why there's such a huge difference between the assessed value and the appraised value. Now, this letter basically says that the value are assessed at the beginning of each fiscal year. But even if we were to take the assessed value of 2017 or 2016, I would potentially believe that it's a lot bigger than what the assessed value currently is. And I was wondering if anyone from the city side had sort of an answer to that.
I can't speak in very specific terms, but my understanding of the explanation by our Chief Assessor Vega is that it's a trailing indicator. So current year assessed values that are assessed to property owners is based on prior year sales. So in order for this property to be assessed at a higher value, there would have had to be a property, or this property would have had to sell for that value to be able to assess that property at that value at a future date.
So, Mr. Vargas, are you saying that the value of a property would only go up if it is sold?
Again, I shouldn't necessarily be giving an opinion on accessory-related issues, so I'll stop. But I'm just trying to, just like you folks are doing, interpreting the information that's before
Okay.
you. That's my interpretation, Bob.
I understand. The other questions I had, unfortunately, are around, sort of similar. They're around the appraised values in the appraisal report. Now, I didn't ask these questions since we were handed these documents day of. I wasn't able to sort of take a, fine look through. But since then, I'm looking at the appraisal, the evaluation report that was prepared for Dr. Gorn by the Minco Corporation. And the five properties they list, out of the five, 3 of them are from different, so there's one from North Reading, from Lowell, from Dracut, and I believe, let's see, 4 out of the 5, the acreage is bigger than the current acreage, and I was just wondering why that's so. Wouldn't it make more sense to look at properties within the city? And then with the other one, the appraised, the report that was given to us, that was given to the city, I have questions around, it's kind of similar questions, but also around the acreage, because it seems like it's, to a layman, it seems like it's different types of properties, or if it's similar properties, they're not in our area, and I would think that the sale price would be different, because something that costs, a certain much in Lowell would, I think, cost differently here in Lawrence. Does that make sense, what I?
No, I think, in my point of reference is when I purchase a property, in the past, when I purchased a property, so if the sale needs to be available, there needs to be a recent enough sale that's close enough as a point of reference. So if there isn't a reference point within reasonable distance, within reasonable time, then it can be used. So if the appraisal went through the exercise and when it was unable to find a similar property within reasonable distance, then that appraisal had to use a different point of reference to get to the valuation that they got to. And again, that's my layman's understanding of how appraisals work. But if there aren't any points of reference, then something needs to be identified as a reference point.
Okay, no, I think I understand that, and again, kind of a layman view on it. I would just believe that there were more properties being sold that were sort of similar here in Lawrence. So I don't quite understand that. I wish that, potentially maybe Mr. Vega would be someone that could inform us on that. And one of the things that I would ask is, potentially us tabling this motion just to hear from Mr. Vega, just because I know I definitely have some concerns. I'm not necessarily against what this is trying to do or the project. I just want to make sure that these numbers are correct, because it's a significant amount of money that we are spending.
Councilor De La Cruz? Councilor.
Yeah, no,
Vargas?
As a point of reference, I spent a lot of time looking at Lawrence real estate and available parcels of land, and there's very few, if any, I think any, parcels of this size available in the city of Lawrence, or that have been sold in recent history. So it is a challenge for an appraiser to reference a similar sized property with similar attributes, zoned in the same way, for them to reference. Again, this is in the B3 zoning district, so if there's a property in Tower Hill that's a similar size, it's not the same because it's zoned differently, and you're allowed to do different things. And the value of the property is also dependent upon how a property is zoned. So if a property is zoned commercial, it's going to be a lot higher value than a property that's zoned residential because of the capacity that you're able to build out that property. So those are other things that are built into the equation. To make sure that the value being cited is consistent with similar sized property, but also similar allowable uses as well, if that makes any sense.
Thank you, Director Vargas. Councilor De La Cruz?
Yes, I have some concerns about that property, because number one, we need a bigger land area to build everything that we would like to build for the police department. We're thinking about 20-year construction that will last 50 more years. Then it is an area that has a lot of traffic around there on Low Street. Is the city planning to buy the property next door to it, like the glass company? Because
No, I'm sorry. So the answer to that question is no. If you look at the report that was provided to you,
it's too dark. The pictures are too dark.
Okay. We emailed the feasibility study. So the property that's identified for the use of the public safety center is that one. The one where the window company has not been identified as a potential for acquisition, because that parcel that we've identified meets the parking requirements that are being set forth by the feasibility study that was produced.
Then where the actual police department is, what is going to be built over there?
Yeah, let me, so again, just to reiterate some of the stuff that was noted in the budget and finance, the city, in partnership with DCAM and Northern Essex Community College, went through this extensive exercise to assess the public safety needs of this community. At the end of the study, the two things or the three things that were identified were: one, we need a new police station. Second, there is a demand for capacity within the public safety training facilities, and it would be great to have more capacity, and Lawrence was identified as a potential. And third, the community college is expanding, continues to expand, and they'd like to build out their criminal justice program. So at the end of the day, the proposal that was put together was something that would create spaces not just for the police station in the city of Lawrence, but also for two other uses that could add additional activity. So if you go on, and I think Chief of Staff Bernal just provided you with the information. In this rendering here, that looks like this is campus and downtown integration. It doesn't have a page number, sorry about that. This gives you a broad sense of what we anticipate doing. Again, these are conceptual drawings, things that we identified as what's likely, but things change in terms of the construction and things of that sort. But this was the conceptual rendering that was put together as a final version of our plans to build out a public safety center.
My last question would be will you have like a public presentation about ideas that the public can bring, like open forum?
I think so, and we're working closely with our state delegation to kind of help us frame the argument. As you know, a few members of our state delegation have put forth some items in the bond bill that was approved by both the state and the House of Representatives, and we're just hoping that the governor appropriates the funds and provides us with that money. So these things have been happening in concert, and the background behind wanting to do this is that it sets us up for being able to build out what we hope to build out in the next couple of years. So to your question, I think it's prudent for the city to engage the community as things progress. And the first step would be to present the proposal as was developed and get feedback and change things based on the feedback that we receive.
Thank you.
Councilor LaPlante.
Sure. Through you, Mr. President. Is Dr. Gorn here this evening?
He was previously here, but he had to step out.
Okay. So the question I would ask Dr. Gorn, if he was here, is did he submit a letter to the Ethics Commission, and if he received a response? And I would ask him that because there's some questions as to whether or not we would have access to that, and it's a confidentiality, of course, and if he sends that, he gets it, and we are not necessarily a party to that, but he certainly can, if he has done that, he certainly can voluntarily give that opinion to us. And if he was here, I would ask him if he has done that, and of course I can't do that. And what I'm not so sure of, I read the city attorney's opinion, briefly here. And it makes sense to me. Did we as a city ask because I think we're a party to this in some respects, even though it's kind of a weird thing because I'm not sure if the conflict of interest applies to a city as opposed to an individual, so it's kind of a weird thing. But did we even discuss or have a chance to talk to ethics, or maybe the city attorney may have? Do you know, through you, Mr. President, do you know if that's happened?
Again, I think we had a conversation with the city attorney, and his recommendation was that there is, based on him being a city employee, there is a conflict of interest. And in order for him to cure himself of that, he needs to file the appropriate forms. And these are the forms before you now. So pending the filling out and signing of these forms, and based on the opinion of our city attorney, he would be complying with all all requirements.
So I don't know where this is going this evening. There may be a motion to table, which I will support at the appropriate time as long as all other members have had a chance to make sure that they had a chance to speak. That would be one thing I would certainly ask, or if there's more of an opportunity. The second thing is, my colleague from Haverhill Street, who spoke earlier this evening, I think made some good points regarding the city assessor's office. What we received that was dated March 5th is just kind of a general overview, and I know in the discussion that we had in the budget committee, it was a little more specific. The budget committee wanted the assessors to review both of the documents and to give us a sense as to what his feelings are. He's our paid staff, he's our guy. And by the way, is he still employed with us? Because I understand there's other things that are happening. Is he still, we haven't changed city assessor yet, right? So he's still with us? All right.
City assessor, yeah.
So, I share that same reaction, which is I want the city assessor to take a look at that and take a look at these very questions we're talking about. Other communities, all these things that we're talking about here. I really rely on him heavily on these kinds of matters. He's been trustworthy and somebody who I rely on, like I said. So that's the other thing. If we were to table this tonight in the next meeting, I would hope that either he would be here or to answer questions or provide something more than just this kind of overview of the process. Having said all that stuff, this is an important matter. We discussed this at the budget committee. I mean, I remember when I was a young city councilor back in the day, and Mayor Dowling was the mayor, and it was like 1999, and we all went to the Eagle Tribune. There was all the legislators, and we talked about this new police station that we needed, and that's like what 18, 19 years ago now, and it's been a long time, right? And we need to do this right. Nobody's rushing to this. I can see this because it's taken us, at this point, 19 years. But we need to do this right. There are a lot of eyes on us to see how we're going to deal with this. Are we going to mess up? Are we going to dot all our I's and cross all our T's on this? We need to make sure that we do this absolutely correct. And if it takes another week or two to make that happen, I think we should take that week or two to do that. We need to be 110% certain that there is no backbiting at the end of this, that we're not open to criticism, that there are sweetheart deals, or that the metrics by which we did the analysis are flawed. I think we need to make sure that we can defend this vote if we decide to go that way, and be, something, we need this, and this property is important, and we can wait 2 weeks to do that. But if we can make sure that we get all that information, I think this is an important vote, and it's a vote that I can support as long as everything here meets those, which I believe are attainable, conditions and criteria.
So just to be clear, so you want additional information in terms of the assessment?
I want the city assessor, our chief assessor, to analyze and provide and answer questions to this board regarding the assessment, the assessors, the process by which these two competing evaluations have been put forward, and we can have a candid conversation with them on that. So that's one. And the second thing is to see if there is any direct ethics commission reports. And if not, if there isn't, then there isn't. We need to lean on our city attorney. But if there is, we should see that, or at least ask for it.
Sure.
Councilors, anyone else? Councilor Payano.
So if no one else is speaking, I'd like to place a motion to table this.
Motion has been made.
Second.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, councilors. Moving on, committee reports, we have the ordinance committee reports. Okay, Councilor Estela Reyes is unable to make it due to work. She was called in to work in later today. We do not have a vice chair in the ordinance committee. Councilor Rodriguez has volunteered to provide the committee reports. Councilor Rodriguez, document 417.
All right, as a transient vendor, 71 Main Street, the ordinance committee voted in favor of this item, and I would like to make that as a formal motion. And this is to order a public hearing.
No need for public hearing for a transfer.
Oh, that's what it says here. Okay, this is to approve the item 417.
Motion has been made.
Second.
It's been properly second. Any discussion? Seeing there's none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Document 40517.
It's a taxi livery license renew. This is American Taxi, Liberty Taxis, Merrimack Taxi, Popular Taxis, Go United Restaurant Transportation, Rapid Transportation, Five Star Transportation, A09 Express Transportation, Valley Transportation, Integrity Medical Transportation, JC Transportation, Reliable Transportation, Quality Care Transportation, Town Livery. Detective Jose Flores was there in the city, the ordinance committee, and we voted in favor of this item to be approved tonight. And that was sent to with a favorable recommendation. I would like to make that as a formal motion.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second.
Aye.
All those in favor, please say aye. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Document 318.
This is a handicap parking on 6 Grafton Street. It was put on the agenda by Sulma Balkin. We voted in favor of this to order a public hearing, and I would like to make that as a formal motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing there's none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Document 518. Mr. Councilor Rodriguez.
515 is also a handicap parking on 99 Boxer Street. This is to be deleted. It was put on the agenda by Brenda Hernandez. The ordinance committee voted in favor of this to order a public hearing, and I would like to make that as a formal motion.
Is there a second? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Document 618.
The 618 is also a handicap parking at 31 Fairmount Street. It was put on the agenda by Angelina Diaz. The ordinance committee voted in favor of it to order a public hearing, and I would like to make that as a formal motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Document 718.
This is the removal of snow from on sidewalks, modification of ordinance section 1204-040. It was put on the agenda by myself, and the ordinance committee voted in favor of it to order a public hearing, and I would like to make that as a formal motion.
Motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing there's none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Are we having some question about that?
This is to order a public hearing.
Yes.
Do you have any comments or questions?
You say you're gonna go to public hearing?
That's correct. Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Document 918, Mr. Vice President.
918 is a handicap parking, 151 West Street. It was put together, it was put on the agenda by Oneida Javier. And the ordinance committee voted in favor of it to order a public hearing. And I would like to make that as a formal motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Document 1718, Mr. Vice
Handicap
President.
parking on 1 Highlands Ave was put on the agenda by Joeris Cordeños, Cordones and Council President Vasquez. We voted in favor of it to order a public hearing, and I would like to make that as a formal motion.
Is there a
Second.
second? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Document 2718.
2718, del Ministerio Poder de Dios, sin límites, request the use the Campañón Common for a cruzada evangelística de Milagros on August 10th, August 11th, 2018, from 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. It was put on the agenda by Elizabeth Prisminal and Henry Prisminal. The Ordinance Committee put in favor of it, and I would like to make a motion to approve.
Second. Motion has been made and properly second.
Aye.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Document 2917.
Semana Hispana in Lawrence requests the use of the Campañón Commons for the Spring Festival of Semana Hispana from April 30th to May 6th of 2018, from 6 p.m. To 11 p.m. on Wednesday and noon time to 11 p.m. on weekends. From 11 p.m. from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. on weekdays and from noontime to 11 p.m. on weekends. It was put together by Sola Diaz. They here tonight. The Ordinance Committee voted in favor of it, and I would like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Councilors, before we vote on it, please note that the document is document 2918. There's a typo on the agenda, 2917.
Discussion.
Discussion, Councilor LaPlante.
Didn't last year during the weekdays, we had it till 10 o'clock? It was kind of a compromise.
I don't remember that, but I mean, do you guys, do we have the people, the committee here? It's the same as last year, according to what they said.
Okay. Yep. Councilors, any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing there's none, all those in favor to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Aye.
Aye.
Item 3018.
Okay, we voted on it already, so it's been approved, so.
No, it's two items,
It's two.
29 and 30.
Okay, so this is the carnival, yes, that's correct.
Yes.
Okay, document 3018.
3018 is Semana Hispana Lawrence request the use of the Campañón Common for the Cultural Festival on June 15, June 16, June 17 of 2018, from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. on Friday and noontime to 11 p.m. on weekdays. The Ordinance Committee voted in favor of it, and I would like to make that as a motion to approve Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor, it's been properly second, any discussion?
Yes, discussion.
This discussion, Councilor Rodriguez and then Councilor Ana Levy.
Just wanted to make sure that, that we agree upon just having the Campañón Common for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. In case another group needed for Thursday, it's going to be available. Because on the package, they have actually put together the Thursday day on there.
Okay.
So
Councilor
we-
Levy? Councilor Levy?
Yes, good evening. My name is Zoila Disla, 36 Chancellor Street. Am I doing?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yeah.
Yes. So this year you asked for the whole week. That is what you say when you presented to the ordinance committee. So one of the questions was why this year you are looking for the whole week, but are we only going to approve, according to what I heard, is for the use of the park for the 15, 16, and 17, in case, one second please, in case of any other organization would like to do or celebrate during that week, so, during the Parade week, as always, for the last 40 years, they want to celebrate also the culture or do any part of the Semana Hispana.
So, through you, Council President.
Councilor
So,
Rodriguez?
we agree Friday, Saturday, and Sunday?
Well, the thing is that when we put the application, we also are taking in consideration the carnival, because the carnival is also with us on that June.
So for the carnival, it's going to be Thursday,
Yes,
starting
and
Thursday.
we need the whole week. Actually, they come in the parks starting Monday, which is the
Yeah, for the carnival, there's no
Ready,
problem
and then-
whatsoever.
we need to start getting ready on Thursday to be ready for Friday, to start the festival,
Okay.
the festival.
And so the thing is, the concern is the following. On Thursday, there is other groups that would like to do cultural stuff as well, and as well as Wednesday. So we need to have those available if it is Semana Hispana completely. So according to a couple of the groups, there were some comments, concerns in terms of having some difficulties in terms of getting the park for those days. So we just wanted to have it available and allow you guys to work things out with the other groups and be able to help them if they wanted to come in front
I think
of
we
us.
already have worked together in past years, like
Yes.
last year and the year before. But we still need to be able to be in the park and get ready for our own festival, for the carnival as well. We don't have any problems working with any other cultural group that comes and also wants to do their.
So let's clarify this. For the parade, for
the carnival.
For the carnival, starting what day?
Excuse me?
Starting on what day for the carnival?
They start on Thursday.
Thursday.
Yes.
So for the carnival,
They start
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, right?
Because John Flynn,
This
president
just-
of Fiesta Shows, the reason why we're moving on the Monday is to start to set the equipment up. It isn't operating, but the equipment is being set up, and the inspections start on Wednesday and Thursday. Not only the city inspections, but also the state inspections. But the equipment physically moves in on a Monday, even though the event doesn't start till a Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
And President, you start on Thursday?
Councilor Payano.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm just trying to sort of understand what's going on. So it seems like the ordinance committee wanted to leave a few days open for other groups to participate, but have other groups come in to petition for these dates.
Yes.
So are there petitions today for these other groups?
Not today.
Okay, so I mean, so far it sounds like the way that these days have been given out, or
Well, historically, I will tell you a little bit about what happened historically for the last probably 10 years or more. Or maybe more. Historically, Semana Hispana has been either work with the Dominican group for Thursday or the Puerto Rican group for Thursday. So either or, one of those two groups. What happening lately in the last couple of days, Semana Hispana has been getting busy, and they wanted to start setting up on Thursday. So the other two groups, they're kind of like a little bit, they've been a challenge, let's put it that way, for them to be able to do anything on Thursday, because Semana Hispana is setting up on Thursday.
Okay, so I think my only concern is that so far I haven't seen any petition for these other two groups to do whatever it is that they're gonna do on Thursday. So I understand the concern here, that we wanna make sure that Semana Hispana is having these conversations with these groups, but without any paperwork to say that they're actually gonna submit, and knowing that for the carnival to set up, I was about to mention that usually I see them setting up days
No, the
beforehand.
carnival is something different.
So,
We're just talking about that, the place where they're actually, Semana Hispana and the carnival, they're two different, they're the same group, they're working at for the same festival, but one of them is Mr. Flynn that set up the whole thing on one side, and then Semana Hispana set up on the other side.
in the past, has the carnival have to obtain a different permit than Semana Hispana?
No, this is it.
So they function with the same permit?
Yeah, this
So-
is it.
So it sounds like regardless, they're gonna be asking for, in order for them to function, they need to set up on Monday. So they need a permit for the park for the entire week,
Yep,
the carnival. Is that correct? Okay.
Correct.
Yep.
So,
that's exactly,
Yes, that's correct.
yes.
so it sounds like, at least for the moment, especially since we don't have any petitions from anyone else, I think it would make sense to me that Semana Hispana gets it for the entire week, that they understand that we want to make sure that they're working with these other different groups and that they come to a compromise for that day, that they're not going to use it. Because it'd be hard to vote otherwise on just this belief that another group is going to apply at some other day, some other time, which could be the case next year. I think
Historically has been, so there will be.
that historically they've petitioned the city
Yes,
council
for Thursday.
after it happens.
Yes, for Thursday.
So a question to the members of Semana Hispana, has there been, have you guys started conversations with the other groups? Do you think that you guys would be able for there to be some type of compromise for that Thursday, having some type of a cultural group take part in there?
We have started conversation, and actually with the dates of the different nights are different this year. And we already met with them. They already have their dates. We haven't publicized it yet because there's one of the group that we have not had the agreement from, which is Ecuador, but we're still working with that. Everybody else has signed, and they all have their date. And in this year, none of them are falling onto that Thursday. They're actually going to be, they were already set up 2 weeks prior to put them on weekends. So
They were set up, I'm sorry, repeat that again?
we changed the dates for the nights to celebrate them within 2 weekends prior to the festival. That way they all have, some type of weekend to do their night. So we definitely know that this year, none of the nights are going to be on that Thursday.
Okay, so if that's the case, if none of the nights are going to be on that Thursday,
No.
I'd like to amend this motion to give Semana Hispana the entire week.
There's a friendly amendment on the floor.
Second.
Second.
No, it has to be accepted by the.
It has to be accepted.
Second.
Councilor Rodriguez, do you accept the friendly amendment?
I have a question before.
Yeah.
Councilor De La Cruz?
Yes, my question is, Semana Hispana is the cultural head group that has been doing all of those other organizations getting together and celebrating by days. Then Semana Hispana should be the responsible one to have all of those other groups together to whatever they wanted to do or what days they wanted to use. Then I think the permit should go to Semana Hispana.
It is important to note that each night, regardless, because Semana Hispana is it is important to note that they're all separate entities. So Semana Hispana, as it is the umbrella for the cultural organizations of Hispanic descent in the city. But each of those cultural organizations are required to come before the city council if they were to use any of the public parks.
But
as well.
isn't Semana Hispana getting the permit for all of those different cultures?
No.
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 Each
Then that
cultural,
needed to-
Each night need to,
each night, it's required to come before the city council
It shouldn't be.
and request their own permits.
So it has been for the last 30 years.
Councilor
Thank you, Mr. President. I think I understand the concern at hand, which is that historically, there have been certain groups that want to use the park on Thursday. And I think historically, that has been allowed. I think, whether last year or in years past, there has been some issues about allowing these other groups to take on the event on Thursday. I think that was brought forward. From what I'm hearing from Semana Hispana right now, it sounds like they're currently, the other organizations are having events that that are not going to be on that Thursday, so it doesn't sound like there would be an issue. But even if there was an issue, I would think that we would allow them the opportunity to sort of have these conversations, reach a compromise, especially because we don't have these groups in front of us to let us know, we're dealing with a hypothetical that we might not know if it's going to happen or not.
But I have a question.
Let me, before I allow you to speak, Councilor De La Cruz, I'd like to make one clarification made by Councilor Payano. So historically, the agreement that has been made between the Puerto Rican group, the Dominican group, and Semana Hispana is that they will alternate. So it's not that they get to pick, automatically one of the nights gets on a Thursday. That has been the historical, background that I could provide. So it's not that they get to, they get to debate as to who gets it. Automatically, either the Puerto Rican or the Dominican gets it, alternating year after year. Councilor de la Cruz.
But my question is, aren't we celebrating the culture of the heritage of the Latino culture in the city?
Oh, yeah.
Then,
Semana Hispana does a terrific job at that. Yeah.
okay, then I believe that it should be Semana Hispana in charge, and then including all of those other groups in those days that you are requesting, not to have two different entities requesting the permit. But like Councilor Payano said, whoever is in front of us first, they have to go first.
Councilor De Peña.
Okay, for many years, Semana Hispana celebrated 3 days. I say I require for 3 days, 15, 16, and 17. This year, Dominican Pérez or Movimiento Puertorriqueño don't use the park Thursday. Nobody use Semana Hispana, don't use Thursday. Only for set up the state.
Only for setup.
Only for setup.
Excuse me, William Castro. If I can elaborate, I'm a member of the Semana Hispana. The way it works, if someone's they set up on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, they use the park. When they pick up the insurance for the week, they start at that day. So anyone who's gonna use the park, if they do any damage or they don't pick up garbage and anything they do in there, including using of the electricity, falls back on the Semana Hispana. So on the past, what they've been doing is been doing an agreement that if they're gonna use the park on the day before, when they set up, that they can pay some of the debt in regards to the insurance, in regards to the garbage removal, so that Semana Hispana being responsible for it, it falls throughout the whole week. So keeping it on the one identity, it falls into the insurance and also helps out with the garbage removal and keeping accountability for whatever happens on the park on the one identity.
So, through you, Council President.
Okay.
Councilor De Peña has the floor.
Oh, sure, no, never mind.
Agreement is for 3 days only.
Yes. 4 days, isn't it?
No,
Thursday,
3
Friday,
days.
Saturday, and Sunday?
Point of
The
information.
paper said 15, 16, and 17.
Point of information, Councilor Payano.
We sent,
Mr. De Peña, I think
we sent
I'm sorry. So what's listed here is for 3
Just
days?
the festival.
I think they originally asked for the week.
yes.
The motion is for 3
This
days.
is just for the festival, those 3 dates.
Oh, okay.
So what's here is for 3 days, but what they had asked for, so it was amended in the ordinance committee, what they had asked for was the week.
Yes.
The 4 weeks for set up the, Mr.
Carnival,
So it sounds like, so starting on
Carnival.
Monday, the carnival starts setting up, and then Semana Hispana is gonna set up on Thursday. I think you had asked a question that I don't know if it was answered, which was, is any cultural group gonna, does any cultural group at the moment that you know of wants to use the park on Thursday? I think that was your question.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was
To
answered.
give you a clarification, like I said before, we already met with the cultural groups that are going to do their nights, and we agree on different dates. The Puerto Rican night is going to be on June 7th, which is the Thursday before, not that weekend, not that week. The week before. No, that's Dominican Republic, excuse me. The Puerto Rican night is going to be June 3rd, which is a Sunday. So we have different dates within weekends for each night.
Okay.
All right?
Through you, Council
None
President.
of them are going to fall on that Thursday before the 3 dates. And actually, we have a preliminary calendar that we can give you with those
Through you,
dates.
Council President.
Councilor De Peña.
And like I said before, the The only one that haven't signed, because he didn't come in the last meeting we had, was Ecuador, but he already knows because we had phone conversation with that group. But no more than I'm gonna fall on that Thursday.
Okay.
Or that week, per se. So whoever wants a copy, again, this is a preliminary, it's not complete yet, exactly.
Councilor Rodriguez?
Council President, I would like, through you, Council President, I would like to just clarify a few things. I have no issues whatsoever with Semana Hispana being there on the whole week. I have no issues whatsoever having you guys running the whole show. The only thing that we have concern is that we would like to see both of any other entity working together with Semana Hispana and allow them to do whatever it takes to expand and explore and the enrichment of culture in our city. So I have no problem whatsoever accepting a friendly amendment for Thursday or for the entire week if we make a compromise tonight that any group that have to deal with culture approach Semana Hispana and ask for Thursday that Semana Hispana won't have and won't hesitate not even a little bit to say yes, use it, even though we're setting up. Because what happened is that even though you're setting up the whole event, there is some time to be able to use the park if any group, I'm not talking about the Dominicans, the Puerto Ricans, or any. It can be the Ecuadorians, it can be the Haitian, it can be anybody.
Yeah.
It can be any group of culture enrichment that are part of the Semana Hispana or not, that wanted to use Thursday and promote what we're looking for, which is culture and enrichment of culture, to be allowed to use that section for a specific amount of time. That could be from 6 to 10. If we make that compromise tonight, I have no problem whatsoever going with it.
Now, just remember,
Payano.
sorry, I just need to.
Sola?
Remember what Mr. Castro said. We have insurance that we have to run through the days that we have to run the festival and the carnival and everything else. So anybody that comes and, I mean, we always work with any cultural group. That's why we are, we have the cultural day that starts in April, and we work with them all the time. And on the night, we always there, and we try to help them as best as we can. When it comes to the park and the days of the festival itself, that just to finish the whole Semana Hispana. We have to make sure that anything that happens in the park, it's going to be under our responsibility. We want to make sure whoever it comes, it needs to work with us. Simple, that's simple. You guys are trusting us to take care of that park while we have the permission to be there. So the same thing is going to happen if somebody comes. It doesn't matter who it is, like you said. What organization comes and wants to use it while we have the permission for it, but they need to work with us. And we need to be able to maintain the park the way it is to make sure that nobody gets hurt, which is the most important thing, because it's under our responsibility. So we want to make sure, I know what you're saying, but we need to make sure that we're working together. And that everything's going to...
Councilor Rodriguez, 1 second. Councilor Payano has
Thank
to...
you.
No, but I mean, it was a follow-up.
Councilor Payano I already had given the floor to him.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I think, Councilor Rodriguez, to your friendly motion, I think I understood the concern that on Thursdays, there was usually 2 groups that would switch on and off, and they would want that space on Thursday. It sounds like there was an issue in the past. From what we're hearing from Semana Hispana is that this should not be a concern anymore because all the other groups have dates already planned, and Thursday is not one of them. While I understand the sort of what you're looking for in that sort of agreement, the problem is that because they are the kind of the umbrella group that
that are taking responsibility for the park, there has to be some type of relationship and some type of conversation that's being had with this group, and I wouldn't necessarily want to force them, for example, for myself to create some small, tiny group and then say, oh, they have to definitely work with me. So I think that there has to be some type of honor code here, and from what I'm hearing, there are no groups that want to take place on Thursday. All the other groups have been assigned. If there is a group, I don't see them present here today, because then it would be an entirely different discussion. Right now, we're dealing with a hypothetical. So if Councilor Rodriguez would not like to take a friendly motion, after he friendly amendment, I'm sorry, after he states so, Council President, I'd like to sort of formalize the process and just ask the council to vote on an amendment.
Through you, Council President.
I had Ana Levy and De La Cruz.
Mr. President, what I would like to do is to table this today and to see if any other group is coming on the next week or during the following week and say, so they are not interested in getting the Thursday or the Wednesday, every year that they used to, or any group, whatever, I don't know which one. So that is what I would like to do and hear before I will take any decision today.
Is that in form of a motion?
That's a motion?
This is a formal motion.
Is there a second?
I second the motion. What discussion?
No discussion.
not
allowed.
Discussion?
No.
Table.
So there's a motion on the floor to table. It's been properly second. All those in favor to table, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Excuse
Point
me, I
of
didn't speak.
inquiry?
It was my turn, and you didn't allow me to speak before.
Yes, there was a
No,
motion to
there's
table.
so what happens?
Before tabling, I would like to say something.
Let me explain the process. So the process dictates that if there's a motion to table, the conversation stops. So even if I had you written down to be able to speak, I cannot allow anyone else to continue with the conversation because there's a motion on the floor to table. I believe there's a point of inquiry on the floor from Councilor Payano.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question was going to be, is it possible for the person that made the motion to table it to withdraw it, especially if there's other people that still wish to discuss?
So we're engaging in a discussion now, not an inquiry on the process. So I am not allowed to engage in a discussion for that.
So
No discussion allowed. I cannot allow discussion.
Call the
So,
question.
all right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay,
No.
roll call.
Council Reyes.
Yes.
Council Levy.
Yes.
Council LaPlante. No. Councilor Abdu.
No.
Council Payano.
No.
Council De La Cruz.
No.
Council DePena.
Yes.
Council Vice President Rodriguez.
Yes.
And Council President.
No. Motion fails. For allow Councilor De La Cruz to speak. Councilor De La
Yes.
Cruz?
What I believe is that, Councilor Payano was saying, you are here in front of us today. The other group didn't apply it on time, didn't request the date, didn't request the time. Then we had to be respectful to the people in front of us that you are here. If they come in tomorrow, they are late. Whoever is here first, and we're going to move in a favorable condition this request, I think we should respect that they are here at this moment, at this time. And I would like to put a motion to request that we vote in favorable condition to approve this tonight.
We do have a motion on the floor. We already have the motion on the floor.
Okay, thanks.
Councilor Rodriguez.
I pass the floor to Councilor Estrada Reyes.
Councilor Reyes.
Thank you, Councilor Rodriguez. It's not about tabling. You know that I like, the work that you had done in the past. But what I can see, and this is something new, I kind of impressed for the debate that we find tonight, which didn't happen in ordinance. I'm not quite sure if any other group are interested in, and they had mentioned it, but they haven't applied. However, I heard very clear when Mrs. Disler was saying that if they want to work together. You were willing to work with them, right? Is that what you said? So I think we just kind of go to the same direction that we have been driving all this year. If something comes up, like you say in public, we are willing to work with any group. Am I correct? You're working with any group that's coming to you and say, we need Thursday, or we need to do this event. Is that how you planning to do it?
Yeah.
Through you,
Okay.
Council President.
Yes, it hasn't been different.
President Disla, if we were to table the document tonight, that will delay the application process for 2 weeks. So you do understand that, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So if we were to table it tonight, what will that mean in
On the
regards to
preparation of-
your application process for, are there any contracts or anything that need to be completed on your end?
Well, let me try.
What impact will it have?
Now, we need to also request the liquor license. Now, we just need to make sure that, and we need to publish all our information. We need to know that we have the park so we can start publicizing, not, make all our document public. So the later that we get approved, the later the information is going to go out there. And then the other process that we need to follow are going to also be delayed. And I mean, it's going to be delayed 2 weeks, and it could be even more than that. So it will be a hard thing for us.
When are you scheduled to go before the liquor, the licensing board?
We don't have a date yet.
You don't have a date.
Council
Councilor
President.
Rodriguez.
So we have tonight, through you, Council President, tonight, and what we're discussing, we're ready to approve Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
You have? Excuse me?
We're ready to approve Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and any time that the festival need to set up, the carnival need for set up. The only discussion that we have tonight
It's the Thursday.
is the Thursday. Thursday have nothing to do with the festival. It's just a prep time for the actual, how you call it? Where they put the bands?
For the stage.
For the stage, yes, I forgot. For the stage. That's the only concern. So, but Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, it's all yours. So on any time that the festival, not the festival, but the carnival we'd require for setup,
But
we're more than happy to give. The only thing that we want is a compromise from Semana Hispana saying, yes, we will work with any group. It can be a group from Brazil that wanted to use Thursday. And if they are, that obviously how conversation need to happen, and you guys gotta work together. It's gonna be under you. It's gonna fall under Semana Hispana. Everything is gonna be under Semana Hispana, we understand. But that's all we're saying. It's a compromise that we wanna hear. That's all.
Council, before I allow, so this is the lineup that I have for speaking portions, and after that, the last person speaks, we are taking a vote on this item. So I have Councilor Dave Abdu, Councilor Pavel Payano, Councilor Brian De Peña, and Councilor Maria de la Cruz. That will be it for this subject. After that, I will be calling for a vote. President Soladisla?
Yes. To answer his question, yes. I mean, it's not different than what we had done in the past. So the answer is yes. This is a 40-year anniversary, 40. We have been requesting this for that long time. And we have, for the past 3 years, at least that I know, we have been working with doing events on that Thursday. So like I said before, and I'm going to say it again, we're going to work with anybody that comes and wants to work with us in the park, but you need to understand, we need to set up a lot of stuff. So, no,
So, but
yes.
still, you're gonna have a time for them?
Yeah,
To do the event?
Councilor
Say
Rodriguez.
that again?
Yeah.
You
I apologize.
you may continue.
So, yes, the answer is yes.
Okay. Councilor Abdu.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Ms. Disla. I appreciate your time. And I just want to speak to process. This evening, we have a group that has been putting this function or some variation of it on for 40 years. In the past, I've voiced my concerns. I've had reservations about whether it be noise, light, hours. But they submit themselves to the process. And not only are they submitting themselves to the process, but they're doing it early, and they're doing everything they're supposed to do. So one thing I wanted to guard all of us about this evening is we ask people, tonight there's multiple ordinances on this agenda. During the tabled items, I'm going to be taking things off. I'm going to ask you to take things off the agenda so that the people of the city can see the process that they want go forward. These folks are here this evening. They've got a permit before us. They've got an event which requires a lot of logistics over the next several weeks to get done. I would hope that we don't tie them up, because as we all know, oftentimes we have on our agenda people applying for permits for an event this weekend. And the next, we're jumping through hoops, the city's jumping through hoops, and we're jamming something through, and that drives me nuts. I'm sure it drives a lot of you nuts too. So I want to conclude my comments by saying that I credit Semana Hispana for being here this evening in March, at an event that's several weeks away, and I caution us about tying them up too much at all, frankly. There is no other group here speaking this evening. The common, I think, is overused as it is, and we have folks here that are trying to do it the right way. So I would just caution us from motivating people, maybe not necessarily to adhere to our rules, the ordinances of this city that we set forth, because we just put them aside. And I'm not suggesting anyone here saying we're putting them aside, but there's no other group speaking. There's no other application before the city. I just think if we're going to establish ordinances, that we have to respect our own ordinances and the process by which they set up. So with that being said, I want to thank the group for doing your due diligence, being here this evening, and thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Abdu. Councilor Payano.
Mr. President, is it possible to allow Councilor De La Cruz to go before me?
You yield the floor to Councilor De La Cruz. Councilor De La Cruz.
Thank you. Something that worries me, that you have the insurance and other people are going to be using the park. Let's say that something happened on that day. Then you're going to pay insurance for people who don't have any application, any insurance, and that's not fair to your group. Then definitely I believe that it's the Semana Hispana who is using the park, and if we have any question to ask, we're going to go to Semana Hispana.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to amend what's before us today and allow them use of the park from June 11th through the 17th.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
And properly second. All those in favor of the motion to amend the motion presented by Councilor Rodriguez, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Present.
opposed? Mr. Clerk,
Present.
roll call, please.
On the motion to amend as presented by Councilor Payano, use of the common by Semana Hispana Committee and Group from June 11th to June 17th, please indicate by voting yes if in favor, no if not, or otherwise. Excuse me one second. Council Vice President Rodriguez.
Present.
Noted. Councilor DePena.
Yes.
Councilor De La Cruz.
Yes.
Councilor Payano.
Yes.
Councilor Abdu.
Yes.
Councilor LaPlante.
Yes.
Councilor Levy.
Present.
Noted. Councilor Reyes.
Yes.
Council President.
Yes, motion carries.
7.
Now the motion on the floor is to approve for,
The amended motion.
yep. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, members.
Good night.
Next document is document 3718. Councilor Rodriguez.
Document 3718 is that Olive and July Inc. request the Companion Common for a anniversary celebration on July 8th of 2018. Rain day will be on July 15 of 2018 from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. And it was put together by Eulalia Feliz. The ordinance committee were in favor of it, and I would like to put that as a form of a motion.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. And congratulations on becoming a grandmother once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Document 5418.
St. Patrick's Day Parade. They were in the ordinance committee requesting the day of, okay. Give me 1 second, please, to clarify this. So the
March 10th.
March 10? All right, March 10? Yes, the St. Patrick Parade request for approval for March the 10th. And they couldn't assist to the ordinance committee, but the ordinance committee moved in favor of it. And I would like to make that as a form of a motion.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Any discussion? Seeing there's none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Document 5718.
5718, transient vendor license, 2 Railroad Street. It was put together by Blas Martinez. The ordinance committee voted in favor of it, and I would like to make that as a form of a motion.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. You're all set, Mr. Martinez.
You all say, yep.
Thank you. Document 6218. Mr. Vice President.
Yes, the Immigrant City Chief request they use the Canal Street and Union Street for the 5K. This is the Lawrence Historical Center, and that's going to be on May the 20th, 2018, and the starting point is going to be at 8:30 a.m. to 11 a.m., and the ordinance committee were in favor of it to be approved tonight, and I would like to make that as a form of a motion.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Discussion, Councilor LaPlante.
This is a very good organization. I've been working with them a lot most recently, and if the councilors could attend, that'd be fantastic. I know that the Councilor Vice President was there last year, came in second place to yours truly, and I'm sure he'll be very anxious to maybe claim the crown this year. If anybody else cares to run, that'd be fine too. So.
Yes, definitely. I'll be there that day.
Okay, councilors, any further questions or comments? Seeing there's none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Next document is document 6318. Mr. Vice President.
Yes, 6380 is the Iglesia de Cristo Rios de Agua Viva request the use of the Barrios Park to preach during the 2018. The following days were approved by the city, by the ordinance committee, May 18, May 19. Cronin Park, Juliper Street, June 15 and 16, Plainman Park, Elm Street, on July 13 and July 14, the Companion Common, on August 3rd and 4th, the Rowell Park and August Street, on Auburn Street, it's going to be September the 7th and the 8th, the Reviviendo Park on Newberry Street, from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. All those locations were discussed and approved by the ordinance committee, and I would like to make that as a form of a motion for approval.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Any discussion? Seeing there's none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Next document, 6418, Mr. Vice President.
The Asociación Ministerial Evangélica del área de Lawrence request the use of the Companion Common on their raining Valley event on August 24, 2018. That's from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And on August 25th, 2018, from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., Milagro Grullon was in front of us. We voted in favor of it, and I would like to make that as a form of a motion for approval.
Motion has been made and properly second. Discussion, Councilor LaPlante.
There's a section here that I'm not able to read. Can just someone give me a sense as to what that says right there? That's what we're talking about right now.
This is the Cronin Park on Juniper Street. So there's the Cronin Park again in Juniper.
Oh, I see. So what they're putting, this is all in Spanish, and what they're
Yes.
putting in here is in our backup material is just the dates and the, and locations and the times.
Yes.
They're looking to do. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Councilors, any further questions or comments? Seeing there's none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next document is document 6518. Mr. Vice President.
The House of Worship Splendor Signs request the use of the Companion Common for their Adoration Extrema in September 8, 2018, from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. The Ordinance Committee voted in favor of it, and I would like to make that as a form of a motion for approval tonight.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Document 7318. Mr. Vice President.
Yeah, it's a committee report, transfer vendor license from 48 Brook Street, Rafael Gonzalez. This is the Ordinance Committee voted in favor of it, and I would like to make that as a form of a motion tonight for the approval.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Any discussion? Seeing there's none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Document 6118. Mr. Chair from Budget and Finance.
Thank you very much, Council President. The Budget and Finance Committee voted to send this document up. This is a presentation of the FY 2017 city audit to the full council without a recommendation. Make that in the form of a motion.
Motion to approve as a committee report has been made and it's been properly second. Any discussion?
I guess if the auditors are here, Council President, so and Mr. Ainello is here as well, so if they want to do a presentation, if there's questions, however they want to.
I think I'd just like to, I think we normally do it just to have Richard Sullivan as the partner with Powers and Sullivan do a brief presentation of the audit, and I think it'll only take a couple of minutes, depending on how many questions the council has. So I'd like to just introduce Richard Sullivan, partner with Powers and Sullivan.
Good evening, Council. Just for the record, with me here tonight is also Kyle Warren. He's a manager in our firm. He's also responsible for making sure all the work that gets done relative to this audit gets done. You've had a long night. I'll try not to make this too long. What I wanted to do is just tell you a little bit about how the audit went, how we go about doing our work, and give you some of the ideas of the results that I think both financially for the city, as well as how I think the audit progressed. Just to give you an idea of the audit schedule, there's a lot to do in a short period of time. We spend 2 weeks in the spring, and in the spring what we do is we look at a lot of things that aren't date sensitive to June 30th, which means we do transaction testing, which we look at your revenue cycle, your payroll cycle, your procurement cycle, your cash disbursement cycle. We also look at things that also aren't date sensitive or maybe already have been done. For instance, long-term debt, your pension liability, your OPEB liability, compensated absences. These are a number of things we get done. Plus, there's one other thing that we try to get done. It's called a single audit. You guys have $286 million budget. That's pretty significant, as well as you spend $42 million in federal grants. We have to get most of that done, at least a part of the budget and all that stuff done before June 30th, before we come out to do our year-end work. We consistently come out the day after or the week after Labor Day to begin what we call our Phase 3 work, which is basically walking down the balance sheet. The team that we work with, Lynn and Mark's staff, do a really good job of getting us what I call audit ready, which means cash is reconciled, receivables are reconciled, capital assets are in place, warrants payable is done, and all the trial balance elements that are necessary for us to do what we need to do are reconciled. So you got to understand that it's not just us that are doing the work. We have to rely heavily on our client being ready, your team being ready, and they have been consistent like that for years. The major balance sheet items that we look at, particularly, the biggest balance sheet item we look at is cash. It's the most liquid, it's the one that can easily walk, it's the one we probably have a high professional skepticism on. At the end of last year, you had $88.1 million, which means that we tied to the penny pretty much $88.1 million. Your capital assets is another element of the balance sheet which is significant. In total, you had $321 million worth of capital assets. There were some added in the year, we audited those, but what that means is that we are basically opining on a significant element of your balance sheet that the rating companies pay attention to. Your big liabilities are your OPEB liability, your pension liability, and your debt. Your OPEB liability at the end of last year was $196 million. It went up $21.1 million in fiscal 17. Your pension liability is $202 million. That actually went down because of some changes in the mortality rates as well as the way the asset valuation went, but it's still a big number. Your debt with a total of $148 million, of which $187 million was related to the city and $60 million was related to the enterprise funds. So what we do is we basically look at all these elements. We call it substantive testing, which means we do everything possible to make sure that these numbers are accurately reported, and I can share with you they are. We also perform analytics, and what that means is we take expected results and compare them to actual results. The biggest element of that is in your budget to actual statement, which was in the back of the financial statements, where you show your estimated revenues and your appropriations. As I said earlier, your appropriation is $286 million. What we do is we look at any fluctuations not only from between the budget to actual statement, but also from fiscal 16 to fiscal 17. And if there are any anomalies, we investigate them to make sure we understand them clearly. So what we found, overall, your accounts are in good order. People who are supposed to be doing the work that you expect them to do under your governance are doing it correctly. The budget, I think, is structurally sound. What I mean by that is the revenue estimates are reasonable and your appropriation levels are realistic. You're trying to do the best you can with what you've got in terms of meeting service needs. A little bit on the financial statements and the highlights. Again, I said the pension and OPEB liability are the biggest elements of your balance sheet on the liability side. It created a negative $385 million balance in your unrestricted net position. That's basically saying that if you were a private sector company, you'd probably be bankrupt. But it's a little different the way municipalities work, because this number is clearly understood by all the rating agencies. They know how the accounting systems in Massachusetts work, and they know what this means to them. And basically, you're not much different than a lot of communities your size in terms of the way your financial balance sheet looks. On the statement of activities, you reported a $14.6 million loss, which was consistent with last year. And this is directly as a result of your pension liability increasing and also your OPEB liability increasing. Now, the pages that if I was going to say you were a page turner, I would look at pages 62 and 63, because that really tells the story. What that is that's your budget to actual statement. So when you, as a city council, are listening to the budget presentation and you actually vote it, this is what's been voted by you at that time. And what I'm going to share with you, from a budgetary perspective, you showed a profit of almost $5 million, actually $4.7 million. There were better than expected results in both revenues, which exceeded budget by 3.8 million, and expenditures came in lower by 1.9 million. That may seem significant, but just want to share with you that as a percentage of budget, these were pretty small numbers. Revenue was only 1.3% higher, and your budget came in at 0.6, just below what you actually intended to spend. So the idea behind the numbers being, let's say, significant, and by the way, anytime you have a positive budgetary result, you should consider that to be a good thing. They're not as significant as you would think in terms of building up your reserves, which have been occurring year in and year out. Give you an idea of what unassigned fund balance is, which is kind of like unreserved fund balance.
Given that you're on page 62 and 63, can you please explain what the excess or deficiency of revenues and over/under expenditures is?
Well, what that means is, could I see that for a second? Starting on page 62, when you look at the final budget of $11.8 million, what that means is you're using some of your reserves. In other words, you have encumbrances from the prior year, if you look at the first column, of about $7.9 million. And then you also expected to use free cash to balance the budget. Maybe a little overlay, but mostly free cash. So when you combine those two together, that's why there's an negative $11.8 million there. Then as your eyes go from left to right, the very first column on page 63 shows what you actually did. So what this is saying is you had a $4.7 million positive when you actually thought you were going to actually have to use reserves and encumbrances of $11.8 million. And the reason is, again, go to the furthest column farther to the right, is your revenues came in $3.8 million higher, and your expenditures came in $1.856 million lower. So this is a good thing. In other words, you expect to see pretty much on every budget, because most communities do use free cash, that creates the negative. There used to be a presentation before where they would show all that other stuff, and the GASB said you can't do that anymore, so we don't do it. But trust me, that $11.8 million is actually makes sense to me, because they're saying you had $7.9 million worth of encumbrances being carried forward from 2016, and you expected to use about $4 million of free cash.
Okay, now that takes me to the next question in the same, in the same pages. So when I look at the budgetary fund balance, end of year, for fiscal year 2017, it says that we carried over 18 million, just over 18 million, and for the fiscal year that we're in, we are carrying a negative 9.7 million.
No, I'm sorry, that's really not the case. That is not really a fund balance number from the standpoint of, with the fund balance number you want to look at is the 4,000,007 plus the 26 million of $30.7 million. What that $9.7 million represents is amounts that were appropriated in fiscal 17 that had not yet been spent, but were being carried over to be spent in fiscal 18.
Encumbered expenditures.
Encumbrances and articles being carried forward.
Okay, that makes sense now.
Okay, good.
Thank you for the clarification there.
My pleasure. So just to get back to fund balance, your unassigned fund balance has been gradually growing, and I'm very happy to see this. You're at $17.4 million, or 6% of budget in FY17. That's an increase of $5.9 million from FY11. So what I've seen over the last 5 years, I'm sorry, let's say 6 years, is that you've consistently been able to build some reserves, which, in my opinion, is very significant, because not only does it tell the reader of your financial statements that you're doing the right thing, but also it can't be overestimated that reserves are an important part of how rating agencies view your balance sheet. Another important thing that I think I should mention, and I think this is the result of it, is back in fiscal 10, you were collecting, you know how you commit your real estate property bills and then you collect them? You were collecting only 89% of that commitment in that year. In FY17, you collected 98.1% of that commitment in this year, which is a significant change, which means your cash flow is better, and when you collect cash, your reserves go up. Another good thing, looking at this, is something in the fiduciary funds. And what we show there is not only the $100,000 that you put into OPEB, which is a start, but your pension fund did very well. Your pension fund increased $12.8 million in FY17 compared to $2.1 million in FY16. Most of that, obviously, is a result of the market, but it did increase your funding from 44% to 46.75%, which shouldn't be overlooked. It makes sense to me. And I think that means that you're probably on pace to be fully funded in about 20 years. A couple of other things on the balance sheet I'd like to talk about is capital assets. Paying attention to your infrastructure, to your vertical assets, and making sure you constantly have a capital program in place is important. You increase your assets by $8.5 million in fiscal 17, $2.4 million for the annex, $2.4 million for various fire equipment and trucks. Your infrastructure for roads was added by $1.3 million, and the school had repairs and renovations of $1.1 million. In addition to that, the Water and Sewer Fund put almost $9 million of capital assets, mostly totally infrastructure for the Water and Sewer Department. And the airport increased, its runway improvement project was continuing going on, which had a $6.1 million increase. On the debt side, your debt is actually pretty healthy. We always look at debt service as a percent of budget. Your debt service is only 4.2%, which means that you're in fairly good shape. You always want to stay at least at a level pace, like 5% is a good number, but 4.2% isn't bad. But you also had what is called a refunding, which means you issued new debt to pay off old debt that had a higher interest rate. That decrease That refunding decreased your future debt service by $2.1 million, which is nothing to shake your head at, and also generated a premium of $2.3 million. So that was a pretty significant impact on your revenue and expenditure statement as well as your future debt service requirements, which means that $2.1 million can be used somewhere else. Finally, that's it for the financial statements. There's 81 pages in the financial statements, and if you ever want to flip through them, enjoy it, but there's a lot of stuff in there. Finally, I'd like to do a quick talk on the federal awards report. That's the one where you have, we basically audit your federal grants. You get $42 million, over $42 million of expenditures of federal grants, and they range all over the place. There are 3 opinions in there. And what they are is their opinion on compliance with laws and regulations, there's an opinion on the administration of major grants, and there's an opinion on the federal award schedule itself. All those were unmodified opinions, or what we call clean opinions. I forgot to tell you something. Can I go back 1 second?
Go ahead.
On the financial statements, quickly, I changed it around because I wanted you to know. When I look at the results of your financial statements, what you want to know is, how did you do? In other words, did you do the right thing? And what you had was an unmodified opinion also. It's the best opinion you can get in a set of financial statements, all 81 pages of them. I was very happy that we were able to meet all the report deadlines that were pressed upon us, because the DOR is still interested in getting their balance sheet, getting the financial statements prior to year end. We were able to do that. Information that we received was totally accurate. I mentioned earlier how impressed I am with your team here, and that goes a long way for us being very efficient in what we do. I'd like to refer us kind of like the Marines. We get in and we get out, and we try to do it as efficiently as possible, and we were able to do that this year. I have no internal control issues to report to you, which is what you want to hear. That's the biggest thing. There's no deficiencies, there's no significant items that I think you should warrant your concern. And also, finally, as part of the audit, there are times when we recommend that entries be made to the general ledger to change the actual general ledger itself. They're not just audit entries, they're entries that are required to be made to make your general ledger correct. We had no such entries to propose, which means any of the information you receive, and I think you might even get some tonight, is accurate as you receive it, not just made up or fixed at part of year end. Okay, back to the federal awards. We tested 22.2.
Before we go to the federal awards, I have a question in our enterprise accounts. So we currently have 3 enterprise accounts, which are the water and sewer, airport, and parking. Right. When I look at the enterprise accounts, the one that came, that was highlighted to me is the parking enterprise.
Yes.
Based on the numbers, and you might be able to provide some information here, but I feel that we could potentially be in trouble in the. Is that your sense?
No, but I can see why you're seeing it. These financial statements have to report the enterprise funds of what we call full accrual accounting, which means we take depreciation, we take OPEB, we take the pension liability, all the things that we do to take your statements, which are based on what we call the UMIS accounting or budgetary basis accounting, and take them all the way to full accrual. All your enterprises are making money on the budgetary basis of accounting.
They are.
They are.
But the concern is that this, the operating income within the parking enterprise is actually at a loss. And I don't know if that's something that we should be.
That negative 126,000 you see, that is what we call full accrual accounting. If you took out, if you took out all the entries we make to go from what I call the UMIS accounting to the full accrual accounting, that would be about a break-even number or a profit. It's not making as much money as you'd like, but my understanding also there's some sort of study being done to try to maximize or identify areas where we can maximize revenue in the parking. I think there are systems being put in place that are going to make that better. So while this is on the full accrual basis of accounting, because let me just give you a couple ideas. You look over, can you look on page 20 for me for a second?
Page 20?
20.
Okay.
All right. And you go down to the liability section.
Okay.
And you see under non-current liabilities, we show $9,000 for compensated absences. We show $1.3 million for the OPEB liability, and we show $2.63 million, $36 million for the pension liability. All of those things are what we call accrual basis accounting. And the change from 2016 to 2017 is reflected in the P&L. So if you pull that stuff out, if you pull those things out, you would have a profit. Not a big one, but you'd have a profit in the parking.
Okay, so this is not necessarily a trend. This numbers will be fixed for this current fiscal year and the next.
I don't know if they'll be fixed, but I think there's going to definitely be improvements and efficiencies. One of the things that is, you got to understand is not only is the enterprise fund, taking the hit from OPEB and pension, but so isn't, for instance, the general fund. I mean, you have $190-something million in pension and over $200,000 in OPEB. So when I mentioned earlier that you have over 300,000, close to 400,000 deficit in the governmental activities, that doesn't include these guys. So basically, if I pulled out all that stuff, we actually go to my earlier part of the presentation where I said the general fund made over $4 million. So it's kind of tricky to understand the concept, but basically the city runs on a cash basis. You collect cash, that's revenue, you pay it out, it's an expenditure. What we do is we take that fundamental foundation and build on it to create all this other stuff that has to be done for GAAP basis financial statements. So things like pension liability, while real, isn't part of how you do your budgetary basis and your collections, while OPEB, while real, doesn't also factor into the way you manage the budget. It's shown here in the financial statements, but it's not the way the city runs.
I know this was probably not part of the audit, but
I'm sorry.
I know this was probably not part of the audit, but have there been any projections made for future fiscal years?
I don't know that.
Okay.
I guess.
Do you know if there has been any projections made for the parking enterprise account?
We do the 5-year forecast, Counselor, and I think last year, I don't think we included, I think we had the water sewer enterprise in there, but I don't think we had the parking in the 5-year forecast, but I'll see if we can throw that in there for this year. But, again, when we budget our enterprise funds, we're trying to budget them to break even. I think in the, the water enterprise fund, for example, always exceeds our revenue estimate, so we have been increasing their retained earnings over the last several years. The parking fund has pretty much been breaking even the last few years on a cash basis, as Dick mentioned.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to make a comparison with the water and sewer, of course, because I understand the magnitude of, the water and sewer enterprise, but definitely with the airport enterprise, which has been established for a much longer period. The parking enterprise is relatively, new in comparison to the other two. But I just would like to see, some revenue projections and maybe expense projections. And I will greatly appreciate if you could present that to the council.
Well, if I could just quickly, I can just give you some idea for the parking, for example, the retained earnings certified by the state in 2013 was $229,000, and in 2017 it was certified at $421,000. So our retained earnings in the parking enterprise fund has increased almost $200,000 over the last 5 years. The water sewer went from $3.8 million to $19 million, and the airport has gone from $300,000 down to $200,000. But the airport had a planned use of retained earnings for those runway projects. So they built up their retained earnings to over $700,000, and then 2 years ago they used some of that retained earnings to leverage some of that those state and federal grants to redo the runways.
Okay, thank you. Councilor LaPlante?
No.
No? Okay.
All right.
You may continue.
One more thing to talk about is the management letter. I'm happy to report that I'm pretty pleased with what I saw in the management letter this year overall. Number one, there were 4 comments from the prior year that were what I consider resolved and no longer an element of your management letter. The biggest thing is, I don't know if you remember in there, I had something called a material weakness, and we had the material weakness because the city was still under the oversight of the state. Now, I know the city is still under the oversight of the state, but I don't believe it warrants being a material weakness anymore because of what I've seen the city do while it has been under the oversight of the state. I also have had the pleasure to talk with Sean Warren, and he agrees with my decision. So I think that's a big deal that you no longer have a material weakness. We talked about Chapter 90 reimbursements being provided more timely. They are. We recommended that you establish a compensated absence stabilization fund. You did. And we also asked you to establish a dental insurance fund, and you did. So those are 4 comments gone away. 2 other comments that still have to have improvements on them, but I thought what I'd call significant improvements, is we had a comment on the student activity funds, and now you're using what we call the impress method to pay for the bills. However, we do want to see you develop some specific policies and procedures. And parking garage operations have gone cashless, and as I mentioned, a review is being done right now. We've got 6 unresolved. Automate the treasury function, which I understand is going to be happening this year. The fraud risk assessment, actually Mark was showing us something he was doing actually tonight. It's pretty standard for every client. It's a difficult thing to get over. It's necessary to be in the management letter because what it wants to do is basically have you folks understand, the governing body of the city, understand what the risks are in the city, what the mitigating factors are or the internal controls are over it, and does that meet your risk tolerance or should there be better controls? Something you have to understand. We do believe in reconciliation is one of the important things. Tailings is an area that we think is going to be able to get fixed, but that's still open. We thought you should automate software for capital assets. It just makes it easier, and it's not that hard to do. We recommended that. School lunch operations are still something we have a little concern with. We're not happy with the fact that there's not a segregation of the cash count and the actual accountability of the cash count there. And we do think there should be better controls over voided transactions because the person who takes the cash can actually void the transaction. And we'd like to see some separation of duties. It just makes sense, it's better internal controls. Finally, we have essentially there's 2 information comments. One is documentation of internal controls over federal awards. 2 years ago, they put this thing in called uniform guidance. What it did is throw out what was known as the OMB A133 audit and brought in uniform guidance. And what uniform guidance says is if you have federal grants, you have to document them similar to the way people who follow the COSO documentation regime do, which means this is what we do, this is how we do it, these are the elements of controls we have in place, and these are the results. It's really not that difficult. It can be done for a broad base of federal grants. I don't know if a program person coming in to audit you would ever call you on it, but it's part of uniform guidance, so we wanted to recommend it to you. And finally, there's a new GASB coming out in fiscal 18. 74 was implemented this year, which all it did was add about 3 pages of footnotes to the back and about 3 pages of RSI in the back also. Its sister is GASB 75, which now says we're going to recognize OPEB liability different than we have in the past. In the past, you were required to make an annual payment into a trust. You are paying what we call as you go for all the retirees' benefits, but the difference between what the payment should have been entirely to the trust versus what was actually paid is what we record as a liability in your books. That's going all the way, and we're just going to look at the total unfunded liability, which means you're going to go from $196 million of a liability on the books now to $423 million to a liability on the books in FY18. All this information has been vetted, meaning that it's not going to do any disservice to your financial statements in terms of the evaluation of them. It's just what it's doing is it's bringing things that had always been in the footnotes, had always been in the back of the financial statements, and it's putting them in the front.
That's it. Councilor, is there any questions?
I got a quick question, Council President.
Councilor LaPlante.
I didn't ask this from the Budget and Finance, just came across me this evening. Well, do you have an opinion as to how bills are paid in the city? For example, the parking garages. I don't think we take cash there. I think it's...
No, you don't.
So do you have an opinion about that and how we take, and even in our offices here, I don't think we take cash here. If somebody pays a fine, we pay with a check, I'm guessing, and maybe a credit card. Do you have an opinion on that?
Yes, I do, but it's kind of difficult. I've had this conversation with other cities like the city of Lowell, and it kind of, I will say, some of the demographics of a community can influence it. Cash is a very, some people don't have checking accounts. Some people don't have, they pay by cash, they earn their money by cash. So for them to pay a bill that's not in cash, particularly parking tickets and gate receipts, it can be difficult. I am also a proponent, at the same time, the less cash you collect, the better. Like, I'm very happy that a lot of the school systems now have those swipe cards, because that was just a terrible thing with a register full of cash when the kids were buying the schools. Now they have the swipe cards, and they've eliminated the cash. The parents can fill their account with a credit card, which I think is great. So I guess I'd like to answer your question this way. Any way you think you can minimize the actual cash collection itself will minimize the ability to commit fraud. And anytime you can do that, I think it's a positive thing.
And we don't, and I don't remember our rules here, but we don't take cash in the city for payment. Is that?
We do. Up to $50.
Under 50.
Under 50, we take.
$50 or less.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilors, any further questions or
For
comments?
library fines, for example?
It's a follow-up on that question.
Councilor Rodriguez.
So, Ayanelo, so we don't take cash at the parking garage, but we take cash at the city, less than $50?
At the
Technically,
city,
that's
at
less
most
than
city
$50.
departments, and I believe it's in an ordinance, the departments
Yes.
are not allowed to collect more than $50 in cash.
Yes, and for the parking, are not allowed to take any money.
Well, the parking
That's
garage
less than
and
50.
lots, we eliminated cash because we set them up with an
Are you
iPad.
violating the ordinance by doing that?
Excuse me?
Is a correlation of, on the ordinance that we have in place? Eliminating that part?
No, there was just an ordinance that said we couldn't collect unlimited amounts of cash, so the
Yes.
ordinance just said $50 or less,
Or
so
less.
that's what we have our departments do.
But that part, that cash collection from the parking was eliminated.
In the parking garage and the parking lots, not from the parking ticket office downstairs, that's run by Republic Parking, so they have different rules, they have their own rules. But just for the parking garages, we've eliminated cash at the garages, and people have to pay with a debit or credit card through an iPad, and with the same thing with the city lots. But that's a parking studies being done
No,
now.
I get the point, but I'm saying is not quite like a violation of our own ordinances that allow people to pay $50 or less in cash. That's kind of like, I don't know.
All set. Councilors, this document does not require us to take any action. Is there a motion to withdraw?
Motion to withdraw.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Thank you so much.
Any opposed?
Thank you very
The
much.
ayes have it. Thank you very much for coming tonight and giving a presentation to the city council. Councilors, moving on, document 7018, Mr. Chair from Budget and Finance.
Budget and Finance Committee reviewed the second quarter in December 31st, 2017, and is sending up a report without a recommendation. It's informational only. Make that in a form of a motion. It's a committee report.
Second. Motion has been made and properly second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Make a motion to withdraw.
Motion has been made.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Document 40117, handicap parking, 92 Greenwood Street by Waleska Rodriguez. Can I please get a motion to
Motion to
withdraw?
withdraw.
Second.
It's been made and properly second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Table matters. Councilors, are there any table matters that you wish to take off the table?
Mr. President.
Councilor Abdu.
Mr. President, I would like to make a motion to remove item, in a bundle, remove items 389, 390, and 391-17 from the table and discuss each individually.
Motion has been made and properly second.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Discussion.
Discussion, Councilor Payano.
I believe that these items, if I remember correctly, there was like a traffic study or something coming from the DPW that was needed, and that's why it was tabled. Do we have those items?
So
Councilor Abdu.
first of all, I wanted to address why I was taking them off the table. No, we don't have those items, Councilor Payano. And if you would, Mr. President, this evening, I asked to take these off the table out of frustration, out of honest frustration. Almost a year ago, citizens came before this council, or the last council, and talked about speeding, about reckless driving, about running stop signs in a school. It's not in a school zone, but it abuts the Weatherby School and Riverside State Park. And at the time, we had a $400,000 grant to build a park. And ironically, Representative Matias, myself, had gone, attended a public hearing, and the first thing you heard about was safety on Everett and Rose Street. Long story short, weeks later, at that podium, about 9 or 10 residents of this area came before the last council and said something's got to be done. And they submitted to the clerk their signatures with about a 4 to 5 page request for about, I don't know, a dozen items of which they had interest. I met with those folks, coalesced around 3 or 4 items. 3 of them are the 3 we just unbundled or took off the table. And they were submitted to the last council in November of last year. And in that time, here they are before us on the table. We don't have recommendations from the police. We don't have anything from the DPW. Letters have been sent. Multiple requests have been made. And the only one who gets punished here are the people that asked me, that asked us to do something about it. Personally, I think they would rather see it fail, but we did something. And unfortunately, it's not this body here this evening that is holding this up. It is lack of documentation, lack of recommendation, and frankly, we don't require police response. We ask for it, we expect it. The ordinance committee typically does not act until they receive it. But that information was requested 4 months ago. And in subsequent ordinance meetings, it's been requested. And frankly, myself and at least one other police officer and one other city employee tried to triage the residents that say, what are you people doing? And at a certain point, they don't believe you. And so, frankly, at my wit's end, I said, I will ask to send this up to the full council for a public hearing, as is. If it passes, and I will advocate that it does, that is great. Mission accomplished, unfortunately, 4 months later. Almost 5 by the time it passes or fails. And if it fails, well, action's been taken. You might not like it, but that's how your city responded to your request. And that was no recommendation of any kind from the departments that we asked for guidance. So I bring it to you in that spirit, and it's not one I'm particularly proud of, but it's one of trying to be responsive.
Question, President, to you.
Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes. Councilor Abdul, thank you for bringing this up. This is very similar to an item that I have tonight on the agenda. And let me tell you something. We do have a recommendation from the police department. They're supporting reducing the speed limit of the city of Lawrence from 30 miles an hour to 25 miles an hour. Those of your items, 2 of the items that I have right here, is to reduce the speed limit of those specific areas that we all agree upon. Have to be reduced, because it's not just those areas that are being affected by this epidemic of speeding in the city of Lawrence. I would like to say it's an epidemic because everybody complains. But as soon as we get to the point that we're going to do something, they say it's an enforcement issue. It is not, because it is a combination of an educational portion that we're not doing, an enforcement portion that the police department is willing to do, and also the part that we do here, which is changing the speed limit of a specific or the entire city to 25 miles an hour. This is trending throughout the state of Massachusetts. If we adopt chapter out of the Mass General Law, chapter 90, section 17C, allow us to reduce the speed limit to 25 miles an hour and eliminate the about probably 50 to 60 signs that we have in the city of Lawrence of 35 or 30 miles an hour. That's all we have. We don't have many. and come up with new signs of 25 miles an hour for the entire city. And guess what? The police department sent a documentation supporting any changes from 30 miles an hour to 25 miles an hour. So yes, we do have a documentation from the police department in place. And I would like to take it forward and allow Councilor Abdul to place to make a motion to send it to order a public hearing. And I will second that if you make that as a motion. If you don't want to, I will do it.
So I think what we have here is a larger concern. I will say that my view on decisions that the council makes has to be backed up by data, and I think one of the things that's important is a study of traffic flow. I think with the motions that you're presenting, Councilor Abdul, we're just talking about a couple of streets. It's not the entire city. However, what's concerning to me is that it sounds like you've been waiting for several months for DPW to respond, and they haven't. So I'm wondering, is it possible for us, so what avenues, and maybe the council president, can fill us in here, does the council have into trying to ensure that the director of the DPW follows up with this? I mean, because he's been
Point of clarification, if I could, Mr. President.
Councilor Abdu?
Counselor, I would note that the DPW director was most recently contacted for the first time 2 weeks ago. We've been waiting on the police since, I believe the date was December 5th or 4th.
And point of
But the DPW director he was just recently contacted.
Point of information.
Councilor Rodriguez.
Just to put it up there, as a legislative body, we don't have to wait for any recommendation. We have to act, and we're here to do that.
Councilor Rodriguez, that's not a point of information.
Well,
No.
we don't have to act.
Councilor Payano.
Thank you, Mr. President. What I would say, so the reason behind, I think the importance of having a traffic study is that we at least understand what the average speed is in that area and what is assumed as the sort of a reasonable speed. The last thing I would like for it to happen is that we change the speed just to say that we did it, because I think that's just as bad as what's going on right now. Because once you change the speed, then perhaps people within the neighborhood won't be as passionate to try to create more changes in the area. So it sounds like to me that there were two things that we were waiting on, one from the police and another thing from DPW. When this was tabled, they were asking specifically for DPW. From what I'm understanding from you, Councilor Abdul, is that you would like to continue, is it to vote on this or for a public hearing?
Councilor Abdu.
So the first, you obliged me, and that was to take them off the table to have this discussion. I anticipate making a motion to order a public hearing for all three items. The third item isn't speed related, it's stop sign related. And I believe that answers your question, and I would ask to speak at the end with more detail.
Councilor De La Cruz.
Okay, according to the message that Chief Vasco sent, it says, in order to educate the public about the lower speed limit, the city and police department can undertake a comprehensive public outreach campaign. Maybe that's what we need, to do a campaign where we are inviting the community, we are creating forums with the police department, with the DPW, and including the community. Because it's okay that we change the law, and most of the people that have been asking for that, it's like every community. It's happening in the south, it's happening in my community. Ferry Street, let me tell you, I was almost killed 2 months ago. If I went to Berkeley Street, the same thing happened. Even around the house, the elderly location over there, it is no respect in the whole community about a speed limit. Then what we need to plan is study in how we're going to do it together with the DPW and the police department, and to find ways that people start getting tickets for not doing it.
Next person, Councilor Estela Reyes, and at that point, I will call the question. Councilor Reyes.
Thank you, Councilor President. I think this is a very important topic. However, we can pass any ordinance, we can change any ordinance, but if we don't have the body to enforce out there, we're not doing anything, which is basically our problem. Yesterday, I was driving into Merrimack Street. I don't live in the street, but I work on that one. Just because the traffic was slow, someone that I don't even know how we can name it, he passed by me in the right side and he hit another car. That didn't stop him. He continued running like he was driving by himself. So we can do it, we can invite it, we can educate our community, we can come out with any plan that we might think of. But what about those kids that are driving? Who are taking the time to educate them? Do you think as an adult they are doing that consciously? No, it's a kid. Yesterday was a kid. That didn't stop him. Not even when people was trying to stop him to take the plate number, he flew in front of everybody. So we can do whatever we want, but this is not going to resolve the issues. If the police stop giving break, I think that can make some kind of changes. But we need to be realistic. It's more than educate the parents, we have to also involve the kids. I don't know if the school want to take some part of that, but I can tell you, the most of the incidents, the accident that we've been having in the city is kids. So unless that we want to be part of that and go to the school, try to create something for the youth, we're going to continue facing the same problem. We're going to blame the police. They can blame us for not doing what we have to do on time. But who are out there? Enforce them. Who was there yesterday? How come we think we can gonna have in every street, we're gonna have a police? And if we don't get a chance to catch them, what are we gonna be reporting? So I think we need to come out with something else. And start, stop throwing balls like, I know your frustration. Because every week if we see, it's many people who come and complain about real things out there. It's not because we're not doing what we are supposed to do, or any department, I'm taking time. It's that we overpopulated. We don't know how to work with the people. We as the body, we need to come out with some kind of solution and bring it up there, just to see if something works. Thank you, Councilor President.
Thank you, Councilor Reyes. All those in favor to remove out of table as a block documents 389, 390, and 391, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Councilor Abdu.
Mr. President, I would like to make a motion, and for the sake of discussion, that we send item number 38917, that we order a public hearing at the next council meeting.
Motion has been made.
Second.
And properly second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Councilor Abdu.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to order a public hearing for item number 39017.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Councilor Abdu.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to finish my thought on these things, I agree with what Councilor Payano and Councilor, actually, all the comments that have been made here this evening. And, whereas we're heading into summer, and we'll have the issues with noise ordinances and all the fun things that come with summer, maybe this is a campaign that we can all and each one, for us district councilors and at-large councilors, that we can all rally around and make it a summer campaign. For the new at-large councilors, this particular thoroughfare, I would invite you to join me any weekend, or anyone who wants to go for a walk down Row and Everett Street. These neighbors in particular have been very resourceful in trying to address these things themselves through their own signage and painting of the street, which is not allowed, and signage that's been removed, but they thirst for something. And, you know, enforcement has been brought up around this table, and they do. They do want more enforcement, like we've heard here this evening by various people. And so the residents on whose behalf I submitted this and that we heard from last year, they're doing what they can, even if it's the wrong thing in the way of marking the streets or signage. But then they're attempting us, and perhaps some of the ideas that have been brought up tonight, education, as Councilor De La Cruz and Councilor Reyes brought up, and a study by Councilor Payano. And hopefully next meeting we'll have a chance to talk about the citywide item. And thank you for bringing Chief Ask's note to my attention, because I read it as part of your package. And here I am frustrated and didn't even apply it to my own. And I'm not a lawyer, so I didn't think of it, no offense. I didn't think of it as applying to, and it's okay to smile, to apply to my own. So with that, I'm rambling. So no further comment.
Yeah. Councilor Abdu, please note that I will suggest that we also send correspondence to the city attorney to draft the language for the public hearing, because we have not received the language yet. And in order for the city clerk to publish, we need the language from the city attorney.
The timeliness of the matter, certainly to get it before the council on the 20th, will be my best efforts. I can't publish something that doesn't exist. That comes out of the city attorney's office. Just to caution the council members, that order has to get to the newspaper no later than, I probably can get it into the Tribune by Friday morning. But again, if I don't get the draft ordinance, and I'll stay in close contact with you. I'll send you certainly email yes or no, one way or the other. I don't want you to certainly be caught in the middle with your constituents saying, yeah, we got a public hearing, and then have it not happen. I mean, that's my biggest concern.
Councilor.
Mr. Clerk, thank you, and I understand, and I appreciate that guidance, and just the action we've already taken this evening that we're taking now, I think will be heartening for them to see. We all earlier today received a note from the city attorney regarding a personal circumstance. Does this drafting have to happen from that individual, or can it happen from anyone within the shop of the city attorney?
I send them directly to the city attorney and leave it to him to decide who to send it to. I mean, I can send it to all three on shotgun approach, but I believe I leave it to the city attorney in respecting the authority of that office, certainly.
Through you, Mr. President, I don't, because I believe this is probably pretty standard language. I happen to know that at least a couple of us have submitted similar items in the past. I personally have. So I would imagine it's, with the exception of some street coordinates and some particulars, it's, I would assume, pretty standard
It's not the
language.
difficulty of the task as much as whether or not it's received by my office. I don't pass upon the difficulty whatsoever.
Thank you.
If I get it, certainly I'll send it out again first thing in the morning. As you saw, I sent it out as soon as I saw your communication as well, expressing the urgency of these matters in particular. I'm not even concerned about whether or not there's a police report or not police report. I have to have a draft ordinance in order to publish. The city charter requires it, and I can't operate again with, if I have nothing to publish, I'm at a loss.
Can I please get a motion to go past
So
10?
move.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. Any discussion? Seeing there's none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
And again, to complete the thought, I appreciate your consideration and understanding. Again, I don't want to put the people you say in the middle and keep them in the middle from a bureaucratic standpoint. I know you understand what I'm saying. They may not.
Okay. My recommendation will be that we send correspondence to the office of the city attorney, not just the city attorney. So all of the employees here.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Mr. President, I make a motion to order a public hearing for item number 39117, which is the four-way stop sign at the intersection of Carlton and Everett Streets.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Councilors, any further matters, any further table matters that you wish to take off the table? Seeing there's none, moving on to new business. Document 7718 is going to the ordinance committee. And I will also send it to the Board of Health for review and recommendation. Document 7818, Ordinance Committee. Document 7918, Handicap Parking is going to the Ordinance Committee. 8018, Ordinance Committee. 8118, Ordinance Committee. 8218, Ordinance Committee. Councilors, document 8318 is a duplicate. Can I please get a motion to withdraw?
So move.
It's been made and
Before we
properly
finish,
second.
I have a question.
Yes?
8018 was not added to the list by me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I asked Councilor De La Cruz to wait this evening if anybody recognized the item. I would pass these on, obviously, to Teresa, as you all know, Ms. Nadareno, excuse me. Does anybody recall 101 Union Street?
Estela, Councilor Reyes was?
Is that yours? Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councilor Reyes. So there will be an amendment to the document to add Councilor Estela Reyes. Document 8218 is going to the Ordinance Committee. 8318, motion to withdraw was made. It's been properly second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Document 8418 is going to the Ordinance Committee. Document 8518, Ordinance Committee. 8618, Ordinance Committee. 8718, Ordinance Committee. 8818, Ordinance Committee. 8918,
Excuse me.
Ordinance Committee. Councilor Payano,
Yes.
are you looking to amend the ordinance language?
I am.
Okay, Ordinance Committee. Document 9018, Ordinance Committee. 9118, Personnel, Ordinance Committee. Document 9218, Ordinance Committee. Mr. Chair from the Personnel Committee.
Mr. President, at this time, there are no new items or continued items of interest.
Thank you, Mr. Very nicely stated. Mr. Chair, props to you. Mr. Chair from the Budget and Finance Committee.
Nothing.
Nothing. Madam Chair from the Ordinance Committee.
Nothing. Next Thursday, same time.
Thursday the 15th,
Mr. President, what time is that?
at 7 p.m. Personnel, Housing Committee.
The Housing Committee is going to meet on the 27th. I get a phone call from Liza asking me if we can change that date. Councilors, any other suggestions? I actually consider that because she's the one that's gonna be here with us, presenting any item that we're gonna have for that day.
Okay, so the 27th.
I don't know what was, why we decided, I wasn't here the day that they choose, March 27th, so I pass the floor to.
Councilor LaPlante.
So no, that day, keep in mind, that's the day we also invited individuals to speak on 77 South Union Street, was for that meeting. So we do have it could be a lengthy meeting anyway, so even if Liza St. Ange is not able to make it, we can still have a meeting. Do we have anything else on the agenda? Is there anything referred?
Essentially, we do. We have a table items on the agenda that we are going to be discussing. And that is including 372 and 374 Exit Street. Essentially, they would like to take the floor.
Okay,
I'm
so
assuming-
March 27th for housing, public safety,
March 12th.
March 12th. Okay, councilors, can I please get a motion to adjourn if
So
there's no
move.
questions? Motion has been made,
Second.
it's been second, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Council Abdo, are you opposed? No. The ayes have it.